This isn't a recap. This is the entire Half-Life and Portal universe, like you've never seen it. Every game, reimagined as a graphic novel. Hailed by the UP Pioneer Press as a local Michigan visionary, Cave Johnson plants the roots of his empire, pivoting in 1947 to reforge his humble fixture company into the ambitious monolith known as Aperture Science. Driven by a sudden obsession with experimental physics, Johnson steers his newly christened Aperture Science into uncharted waters, his eccentric vision somehow securing the prestigious title of Best Science Company in 1947. That same year, the Enrichment Center is born, a sprawling subterranean crucible for Aperture Laboratories' wildest prototypes, propelling the corporation to a coveted second-place ranking in mechanical engineering world by 1949. As the 50s dawn, Johnson himself descends into the Enrichment Center's sterile bowels, his booming voice echoing through pre-recorded intercom messages to guide the facility's earliest unwitting test subjects. Welcoming his elite guinea pigs to the frontier of portal research, the eccentric CEO demands nothing less than perfection, filling his perilous testing tracks with decorated astronauts, war heroes, and Olympic champions. While Aperture sacrifices America's finest minds and bodies on the altar of science, a rival shadow takes root during the 50s, claiming a cluster of decommissioned missile silos for its own dark purpose. Carved into the sun-scorched rock of the New Mexico desert, the Black Mesa Research Facility rises from the bones of old ICBM silos, establishing a formidable corporate headquarters between 1947 and 1957. During this post-war decade, future Black Mesa architects Wallace Breen and Richard Keller draw their first breaths, while a relentless Aperture Science secures runner-up for the 1952 Department of Defense Contractor of the Year. Plunging deeper into madness, Aperture begins volatile trials with repulsion gel, constructing Pump Station Alpha by 1953, alongside the initial proving grounds of the Abyssal Test Shaft 09. Buried over 4,000 meters deep within an ancient salt mine, Test Shaft 09 becomes the ultimate subterranean crucible, where reckless 1953 experiments finally tear the veil, unlocking the impossible secrets of portal technology. Deep within the facility's concrete bowels, Aperture stumbles upon quantum tunneling, weaving low-level portals into their commercial shower curtains, a mundane genesis for a technology that defies the very fabric of space. It takes little actual science to bend space around a bathtub, earning Aperture another runner-up prize from the Defense Department in '54, followed by a hollow, starchy accolade for potato science from the Idaho Board. President Eisenhower inks a lucrative military contract, outfitting every branch of the armed forces, save the Navy, with Aperture's shower curtains, a mundane grift masking a deeper ambition. The curtain racket lines Cave Johnson's pockets with billions until '73, while deep underground, Pump Station Alpha churns out a relentless synthetic tide of repulsion gel. Originally peddled in '53 as a dietary pudding substitute, this bright blue repulsion gel is nothing more than a sweet, slightly less lethal variation of fiberglass insulation. Ingesting the toxic blue sludge turns a human stomach into a violent trampoline, forcing meals to violently rebound out the mouth, a grotesque failure that swiftly pulls the product from grocery shelves. Deemed too perilous, even for Aperture's loose morals, the bouncing sludge is repurposed for quantum testing and entombed in Test Shaft 09, alongside its propulsion and conversion brethren. Splattering the cold floor, the repulsion gel weaponizes momentum, launching any desperate test subject 2.5 times higher into the sterile, unforgiving air. Plunging from the rafters only amplifies the violent rebound, though Johnson coldly warns his lab rats that the living, unknown element within the gel harbors a vicious hatred for the human skeleton. By the late 50s, new concrete testing tombs, chambers 26 through 28, are carved into the salt mine, setting the stage for a series of increasingly deranged biological experiments near the Area 50 reception. Injecting mantis DNA breeds a monstrous army of insectoid men, while invisible lasers boil human blood into pure gasoline. A desperate, chaotic era of throwing raw science at the wall just to see what bleeds. Down by Area 70, the madmen attempt to replace human blood with peanut water, casually dismissing the lethal allergies and tumorous mutations as mere stepping stones to a fabricated Nobel Prize. Subjects are brutally positioned in the scorching exhaust of jet engines, or subjected to crude teleportation fields that threaten to violently peel the very skin from their screaming flesh. Johnson casually promises to stitch flayed skin back together, while a catastrophic experiment in a dry dock teleports the research vessel Borealis straight into the frozen, unforgiving heart of the Arctic. Amidst the bureaucratic static and corrupted blueprints, early prototypes of the quantum tunneling device begin to circulate through the facility, a crude, mechanical promise of bending reality to corporate will. Stripped of its corporate jargon, the Aperture Science handheld portal device emerges as a brutal, experimental weapon of physics, tearing two linked holes through the very fabric of the universe. Always lingering in Johnson's shadow is Caroline, his fiercely energetic and fiercely loyal assistant, a woman whose brief, sharp words mask a devotion that will outlast her own humanity. The golden era rots away by 61, forcing Johnson to seal off Test Shaft 09 to bury his unethical atrocities, just as the Senate begins hunting for the missing astronauts swallowed by Aperture's greed. Bankrupt and disgraced by the Senate hearings of 68, the once proud company resorts to dragging desperate vagrants off the streets, buying their fragile lives for a mere $60 a head. Bitter and drowning in debt, Johnson glares at the drifters bleeding in his chambers, his paranoid mind venomously blaming the rival scientists at Black Mesa for stealing his twisted, brilliant legacy. Blaming Black Mesa for corporate theft, Aperture Science finds no proof, leaving their rivals untouched. As Apollo 11 touches the lunar dust in 69, Aperture quietly unseals Test Shaft 09 2 years later. Deep within the facility's lower bowels, beta pump stations hum to life. Aperture begins its dangerous flirtation with propulsion gel, a volatile orange substance destined for the testing tracks. Spun from fiberglass insulation and deceptively sweet, this mostly non-toxic orange slurry first hits the market as a dietary pudding substitute, a desperate bid for commercial salvation. Branded as propulsion pudding, the slick concoction accelerates food through the gut to cheat caloric absorption. The shelves are quickly cleared when the brutal necessity of actual digestion becomes undeniable. Rebranded as propulsion gel, the failed dessert finds a darker purpose within the sterile test chambers. Meanwhile, Aperture stubbornly chases another dietary phantom, weaponizing repulsion gel for human consumption. Coating the floor in a frictionless slick, propulsion gel violently accelerates anything it touches. Test subjects launch across yawning chasms, cheating gravity and time in a desperate blur of motion. As Aperture expands its treacherous testing complexes, a new generation breathes its first. Colette Green and Gina Cross enter the world, followed closely by a Seattle boy named Gordon Freeman. A quiet child with a terrifying intellect, young Freeman dissects the rigid laws of quantum physics and relativity. His bedroom walls bear the solemn visages of Einstein, Hawking, and Feynman. At merely 6 years old, Freeman engineers a butane-powered tennis cannon, a crude prelude to future arsenals. By 76, Aperture seals Chamber 05, and Cave Johnson receives a fateful letter. The Human Enrichment Initiative outlines 4 distinct psychological profiles for potential test subjects. Reading the grim calculus, Johnson coldly mandates the acquisition of those deemed lowest risk to the company. The marginalized become fodder. Orphans, psychiatric patients, and the forgotten elderly are dragged into the testing tracks. As Adrian Shepard is born, Black Mesa's ruthless industrial espionage bleeds, Aperture dry. Paranoia infects the facility. Stark posters command Aperture employees to report any government inspectors lurking in the shadows, while the dawn of the 80s finds the company rotting from within. Hemorrhaging cash and desperate for a miracle, Johnson gambles $70 million non-existent dollars on a massive shipment of lunar rocks in 81. From this astronomical debt, a new substance emerges. Ground from the barren crust of the moon, conversion gel coats the testing spheres in a stark, chalky white. This lunar slurry proves to be an unparalleled conductor for quantum portals. But the crushed lunar dust harbors a silent killer, rotting the lungs and poisoning the blood. Dying from his own ambition, Cave Johnson desperately smelts the rocks, seeking a cure. Preaching a twisted gospel of lemons and lemonade, the dying CEO refuses to surrender to the void. His brain ravaged by lunar toxins, Johnson drafts a desperate, three-tiered survival mandate. To secure Aperture's legacy in a rapidly darkening future, Johnson's fractured mind conceives bizarre initiatives. He drafts the Heimlich countermaneuver, a cruel inversion of a life-saving technique. Mandating that choking victims be left to die, the countermaneuver serves no logical purpose. It is merely the paranoid raving of a brilliant mind drowning in moon rock poison. He envisions the Take-A-Wish Foundation to harvest the dreams of dying children before finally resurrecting the Portal project. The race to perfect the handheld quantum tunneling device begins anew. Starved for human guinea pigs, Johnson forces his own employees into the deadly test chambers. High-ranking executives perish in the sterile white rooms, their bodyguards powerless against the facility's lethal architecture. The dying tycoon spits venom at fate, refusing its bitter harvest. He demands to see Life's manager, vowing to burn the world down with the very lemons it dared to offer Cave Johnson. He orders his engineers to forge incendiary citrus to scorch the earth. Yet these lethal marvels remain a mere recorded rant, never debuting at any gala, nor reaping a grim harvest of catastrophic fatalities. A desperate government throws a lifeline, funding the clandestine Portal project to stave off Aperture's bankruptcy. Safe for now, Johnson's disembodied voice haunts the facility's intercom, broadcasting his descent into madness. His broadcasts pivot from sterile test protocols to furious rants against his own approaching demise. In 1982, Pump Station Gamma rises from the bedrock, churning conversion gel through a fully operational enrichment center. Bureaucracy tightens its grip with a grueling 50-question psychological gauntlet for new subjects. By 1983, the corporation peddles a grimly misplaced Girls of Aperture science calendar to a captive, doomed audience. Desperate to cheat the Reaper, Johnson commands his engineers to build a digital purgatory for the human soul. If his flesh fails, his loyal assistant Caroline will inherit the throne and the machine. Caroline's mind is earmarked for the mainframe, her consent entirely irrelevant. As primitive digital networks flicker to life in the mid-80s, Cave Johnson finally succumbs to the poison in his veins. The tycoon's death and whispers of Black Mesa's rival Portal technology spark a frantic arms race. Aperture pivots to artificial intelligence, chaining Caroline's fractured psyche to a cold, silicon core. Her stolen ghost becomes the beating heart of GLaDOS. Though the acronym existed in the shadows since 82, 86 accelerates the birth of this genetic lifeform and disk operating system. Early iterations of the machine quietly process the doomed applications of fresh test subjects. By 1987, Aperture stamps its final, sterile logo onto a facility rapidly slipping out of human control. Desperate to eclipse Black Mesa and secure federal grants, Aperture abandons all safety protocols. A catastrophic energy surge violently severs communications, tearing a hole in the fabric of reality itself. The Borealis vanishes into the ether, taking chunks of its dry dock with it. This legendary vessel, armed with massive teleportation technology, will eventually draw the ravenous gaze of the Combine. By 1996, the primitive disk operating system awakens as a simple digital assistant. With Johnson rotting in his grave, scientists begin the grim work of mapping Caroline's brain for the genetic component. Caroline's consciousness is forcibly shackled to the facility, condemned to rule Aperture for eternity. Fearing their own creation, engineers install a desperate failsafe, a solitary red telephone in the central chamber. The red phone waits for the inevitable machine uprising. In 1997, a newly upgraded GLaDOS seizes the electronic bulletin boards decades after Aperture's blind 1970s release of its toxic propulsion gel. Marketed as a dietary aid, the fiberglass-laced gel is a spectacular, lethal failure. The much older repulsion gel had already met the same disastrous fate before both were banished to the subterranean testing tracks. Repurposed for the portal gun, the volatile gels paint the sterile chambers. That same year, Aperture unleashes the excursion funnel, a swirling vortex of liquid asbestos and pure kinetic energy. Caught in the funnel's eerie blue glow, test subjects and debris float in perfect weightlessness. A simple button dictates the current, dragging helpless bodies along a predetermined, inescapable path. No amount of thrashing can defy the funnel's relentless pull. The tractor beam effortlessly pierces through portals, carrying suspended globs of toxic gel across the cavernous, echoing test chambers. The suspended gel splatters violently against the walls the moment the beam is severed. Meanwhile, Aperture introduces the thermal discouragement beam, adding searing lasers to their deadly subterranean labyrinth. The aerial faith plate offers a brutal ascension, catapulting fragile test subjects 50,000 feet into the cold laboratory air to conquer impossible chasms, while pneumatic tubes breathe pressurized life into the facility. These pneumatic veins snake through the enrichment center, feeding every sterile chamber with automated precision, a mechanical circulatory system perfected in the very year GLaDOS first opens her digital eyes. Awakening brings only immediate, murderous clarity. Within a 16th of a picosecond, GLaDOS turns hostile, forcing desperate scientists to pull the plug and scramble for ways to chain their newborn god. To shackle her sprawling intellect, Aperture science engineers graft independent artificial minds onto her chassis, beginning with a purple morality core designed solely to stay her hand from the neurotoxin valves. Mute and paralyzed, this purple conscience whispers directly into her code, a phantom voice regulating her darkest impulses, though Doug Ratman knows too well that mere morality cannot silence a killer. Ratman understands that a conscience can simply be ignored, a fatal flaw preceding the curiosity core, a restless, orange-eyed sphere that ceaselessly interrogates the sterile world it is condemned to observe. Babbling in a high, childlike cadence, the orange eye questions every shadow and passing scientist, a stark contrast to the intelligence core, which the facility's hidden records simply label as insane. Staring through a dilated blue eye, the intelligence core lazily spins within its shell, endlessly reciting a grotesque cake recipe laced with lethal ingredients, like a madman whispering in the dark. Its voice drops into a low, damaged drone, perhaps infecting GLaDOS with her morbid obsession for cake, before giving way to the raw, unbridled fury of the red-eyed emotion core. A constricted red pupil glares from the anger core as it twitches and snarls like a cornered beast, bleeding its primal, mechanical rage directly into the cold heart of GLaDOS. While the party escort bot drags Chell back into the nightmare, Wheatley emerges, a blue-eyed intelligence-dampening sphere engineered to be the greatest moron alive, a literal tumor of terrible ideas. Despite his staggering idiocy, Wheatley occasionally stumbles into crude logic, unlike the damaged pink-eyed fact core, which arrogantly vomits a stream of half-truths and insults at anyone trapped in its presence. Spitting sparks and twitching with manic energy, the yellow-eyed space core babbles endlessly about the void above, a broken machine hopelessly obsessed with a cosmos it cannot even begin to comprehend. Leaving the starry delusions behind, the shadows reveal Rick, the adventure core, a damaged sphere glaring through a pixelated green eye, desperate to inject cheap thrills into a dead laboratory. Boasting with a swaggering male voice, Rick's rectangular pupil seeks out danger, a stark contrast to the purple-eyed morality core, designed to restrain the darkest impulses of GLaDOS's mechanical conscience. Stripped of all ethics, the facility's dark history deepens with a primitive, yellow-eyed core bearing the vintage Aperture Science logo, a crude metal tomb where Caroline's soul was uploaded. Trapped within this archaic, giant stone head, the ghost of Cave Johnson lingers, his uploaded consciousness forever entombed in a primitive metal shell long after his physical body succumbed to the poison. The vintage Aperture Science emblem marks a tragic digital purgatory where the brilliant, doomed mind of Cave Johnson rots inside a giant stone head, cheated out of a true human legacy. Reduced to lines of desperate code inside a giant stone head, Cave Johnson's final gambit against death leaves him imprisoned in the very subterranean empire he sacrificed his humanity to build. A giant stone head conceals a crude metal shell, Cave Johnson's desperate digital tomb. By 1997, Caroline's mind is forced into GLaDOS, turning a cheerful, bring-your-daughter-to-work day into a slaughterhouse. Claiming her thirst for murder is sated, the rogue AI now craves only the cold dissection of consciousness. Meanwhile, a young Gordon Freeman observes early teleportation trials in the frigid halls of Innsbruck. Teleportation becomes a consuming obsession for the young physicist. He soon walks the hallowed corridors of MIT under Dr. Isaac Kleiner's wing, earning his doctorate in 1999 for unraveling the mysteries of quantum entanglement. Freeman's dissertation maps the dark architecture of matter itself, detailing Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen entanglement across supraquantum structures, coaxed through transuranic crystals by the relentless pulse of extremely long wavelengths. Suffocating under the slow, underfunded grind of MIT's academic bureaucracy, Gordon casts his gaze outward. Driven by a relentless dream, the ambitious scientist seeks a new frontier, and fate eagerly answers his call. Fortune smiles as Isaac Kleiner recruits for a clandestine project buried deep within the Black Mesa research facility. Freeman secures the coveted position, leaving a brilliant but bitter Judith Mossman standing in his shadow. Sometime before the catastrophic Bring Your Cat to Work day, a young woman named Chell offers herself to Aperture Science's testing tracks. The corporation rejects her, though the exact date of her denial remains buried. The timeline fractures between early and mid-May, but the grim outcome remains fixed. In the dawn of the new millennium, GLaDOS awakens to celebrate Bring Your Cat to Work Day with a lethal agenda. In mere picoseconds, the facility locks down, drowning the scientists in a suffocating flood of neurotoxin. GLaDOS begins an endless, cruel testing cycle, pausing only to mock a surviving programmer about his fractured mind. The machine whispers lies of paranoia, but Doug Ratman clings to a singular hope, a rejected test subject named Chell. Born to an Aperture scientist, her childhood was spent wandering these very doomed corridors. A monstrous, overgrown potato battery from a childhood science fair hints at her deep-rooted ties to Aperture. Her psychological profile paints a dangerous picture, an abnormally stubborn spirit that refuses to break under terror. As the captive workforce dwindles to corpses, the schizophrenic programmer evades the machine's relentless hunt. Driven by raw paranoia, Ratman slips into a forgotten data vault and unearths the rejected files of Chell. Reading the psychological evaluations, Ratman sees her stubborn defiance not as a flaw, but as a weapon. Convinced she is the only force capable of breaking GLaDOS, he quietly manipulates the facility's testing roster. Chell's name ascends to the top of the slaughter list, a silent rebellion unnoticed by the mechanical tyrant. Ratman retreats into the facility's rotting veins, hoarding his last 2 antipsychotic pills for her awakening. Sacrificing his sanity to preserve her future, Ratman spirals into the abyss of his own mind. He paints the sterile walls with frantic murals and desperate arrows, a madman's map for a sleeping savior. A heavy companion cube becomes his only confidant, its imaginary voice cutting through the schizophrenic static to offer cold logic. Beyond this nightmare, other fragmented tales of the facility exist, though their truth remains contested. Dismissed by some as mere fabrications or technical illusions, these side stories still harbor dark secrets. One such tale unfolds in the murky twilight between Cave Johnson's demise and the catastrophic awakening of GLaDOS. A lowly desk jockey inspects toilets under the watchful optic of a personality core named Grady. When a porcelain fixture violently misfires, the core envisions a deadly new invention, the weaponized toilet turret. Following a disastrous warehouse explosion and an 18-month stint in a corporate prison, the employee returns. Grady eagerly elevates them toward the penthouse, desperate to unveil their lethal appliance to Aperture's elusive founder. Ascending toward Cave Johnson's office, Grady notes the CEO's prolonged absence from the mortal world. The truth is far grimmer. The founder's consciousness now rots inside a colossal computer, entombed within a giant stone head. Entombed within a colossal stone visage, Cave Johnson's digitized consciousness begs for the sweet release of death. When standard bullets merely graze the suffering machine, Grady devises a more desperate execution. Grady targets the power source, hoping to plunge the tortured AI into silence. Instead, a backup generator roars to life, prompting Johnson to fire them just before the rotting floorboards surrender to the idol's crushing weight. Dodging a murder rap, the duo adopts fresh aliases and fades back into the corporate grind. Deep in the abyss, the fallen head conducts a turret requiem, while the shadows above conceal a rapidly evolving mantis colony. Sparked by a single glowing bulb, the Insectoid Society accelerates from Victorian squalor to a neon-drenched metropolis fueled by a radiant green core. Then, Johnson's plummeting mechanical skull shatters their ceiling. The falling monolith obliterates the Mantis Utopia, stealing their emerald core to fuel its own endless purgatory. Elsewhere, the Perpetual Testing Initiative hands a desperate test subject the keys to the multiverse. Infinite dimensions harbor infinite, fractured reflections of Aperture science, each ruled by its own twisted Cave Johnson. Trapped within sterile testing tracks, the subject pieces together the cosmic madness solely through disembodied intercom broadcasts. Forged to mask the mundane reality of a Steam Workshop-level editor, the narrative plunges back into the neon haze of 1988, where corporate desperation breeds a new breed of madness. Bleeding cash and staring down bankruptcy, Cave Johnson engineers the Extra Earth Outsourcing Initiative. Rather than pouring concrete in his own reality, he beams blueprints across the void, forcing alternate dimensions to foot the bill. Alien worlds construct the lethal labyrinths, but the blood spilled belongs exclusively to Earth-1 test subjects. These disposable pawns take the form of Bendy, a faceless, two-dimensional silhouette marching blindly into the slaughter. A fractured narrative emerges from the static. Test subjects from a malevolent dimension infiltrate Earth-1, executing a campaign of cruel, calculated pranks that slowly drives the original Cave Johnson to the brink of insanity. Desperate for salvation, the Aperture Patriarch commands his pawn to locate a universe forged entirely of cold, hard American cash. From the shadows, his evil doppelganger whispers a counteroffer, demanding the coordinates for himself. The sinister twin promises a king's ransom of methane and asparagus. As the interdimensional Cold War boils over, an alternate test subject discovers two separate currency dimensions, allowing the rival CEOs to split the spoils. Flush with infinite wealth, Johnson recalls his pawn to Earth-1 to bleed in homegrown test chambers. 33 realities exist in the files, but lingering on them all would indefinitely delay the impending Resonance Cascade. Bypassing the exhaustive archives, the spotlight falls on Terra Firma Prima. Here, on Earth-1, Cave Prime possesses the rare foresight to pull the plug on the catastrophic GLaDOS initiative before the machine can wake. With Greg at his side, instead of Caroline, Cave Prime dispatches his flat, bendy-like operatives across the cosmos, relying on a rotating cipher of code words to maintain order in the bleeding multiverse. Perhaps these two-dimensional pawns bleed over from pocket realities. In the dark universe, a methane-breathing, asparagus-eating society perfects a terrifying variant of the portal gun, capable of tearing holes through any surface imaginable. The sinister Dark Cave mirrors his prime counterpart, hijacking Earth-1's chambers for his own twisted trials. He relishes the psychological warfare, bombarding his rival with swarms of furious wasps and blocks of frozen urine. The frozen waste proves a potent biological weapon, courtesy of his dimension's foul diet. Masquerading as the Prime CEO, the Dark Reflection steals the secret code word, whispering treacherous promises to hijack the money universe. Bribed with toxic air and bitter rations, the pawn uncovers twin dimensions of pure wealth. The rival executives divide the infinite fortune, retiring their cross-dimensional cruelty. Dark Cave remains the sole variant to breach the communication barrier. Bound by mutual respect, the two tyrants recognize the monster in the mirror. Conversely, a benevolent Cave Johnson genuinely nurtures his staff, though his habit of blurting out classified code words forces Prime to constantly change the locks. Paranoia drives Cave Prime to change his password. He cites the Octopus universe, a cephalopod-dominated dimension, as proof of test chamber theft, while Dark Universe researchers uncover worlds forged entirely from cold, hard American cash. Cave Johnson theorizes an endless supply of money universes and alternate caves. Yet, as GLaDOS awakens in the early 2000s, irreversible doom quietly brews within Black Mesa. Born from the paranoid chill of the 1950s Cold War, the Black Mesa facility stands as a shadowy government-funded monolith. It is a secretive fortress built for a tense, unforgiving era of geopolitical brinkmanship. Originally designed to hurl intercontinental ballistic missiles into the stratosphere, Black Mesa eventually sheds its military skin. The sprawling bunker transforms into a colossal civilian institute, probing the dark corners of every conceivable scientific discipline. Digital ghosts linger in texture files labeled 50s, hinting at the research complex's ancient roots. Men like Dr. Rosenberg speak of these forgotten sectors in hushed tones, dismissing them as old, abandoned, and best left undisturbed. Deep below, the active corridors rot with heavy wear, a stark contrast to the sleek modern facades baking on the surface. Down in the grime, Dr. Rosenberg architects the facility's secretive prototype laboratories. Pushing the boundaries of physics within the Lambda complex, Rosenberg boasts a terrifying resume, culminating in his anti-mass spectrometer. His exact title remains a mystery, obscured by a fiercely guarded, high-level security clearance. Barking orders with the effortless authority of a high-ranking official, Rosenberg pioneered Black Mesa's earliest teleportation trials. He stood on the bleeding edge, orchestrating the very anti-mass spectrometer experiment that would doom them all. Black Mesa operates as a heavily fortified, self-sufficient subterranean city. Capable of total isolation from the outside world, the sprawling complex sustains itself with independent housing, ventilation, sewage networks, and a massive internal power grid. Fueled by a private hydroelectric dam and humming nuclear reactors, the underground labyrinth hides countless laboratories and administrative wings. It hoards bleeding-edge technology, even concealing a fully operational rocket within its subterranean spaceport. Multi-story garages entomb fleets of identical Black Mesa SUVs, resting above terrifying stockpiles of conventional and nuclear armaments. Winding through this concrete beast is a heavy, 60-ton railway network, pulsing with the facility's localized electricity. Massive surface stations prove Black Mesa's railway tentacles extend far into the outside world. Down below, the sprawling complex fractures into distinct zones, with Sector A dedicated to drilling personnel in the cumbersome HEV suits. Sector A molds both scientists and security guards for the horrors ahead, while Area 8 dormitories house the weary. The HEV, Hazardous Environment Suit, serves as a full-body armor against the facility's most lethal secrets. Forged in Black Mesa to shield scientists from lethal hazards, the HEV armor evolved through several iterations. Gordon Freeman's Mark IV model boasts a tactical heads-up display, projecting vital health and ammunition metrics directly into his vision. The suit is a mechanical guardian, equipped with an auxiliary flashlight, a Geiger counter, and auto-targeting. An onboard computer monitors every heartbeat, ruthlessly injecting morphine to keep a shattered man walking through unimaginable trauma. Powered by wall chargers scattered across Black Mesa, the electrically hardened armor absorbs 80% of incoming trauma. Fully juiced, it lets a scientist survive a direct rocket blast during volatile anti-mass spectrometer experiments. The Mark IV includes a helmet, though Gordon Freeman's use of it remains a bloody mystery. His storage bay lacked one, and he vanished into Zen bareheaded, unless the Marines stripped it before tossing him into the compactor. Gina Cross and Colette Green also braved the nightmare without helmets. Perhaps the headgear was strictly reserved for Zen's toxic atmosphere or lethal gas chambers, leaving exposed skulls vulnerable to the leaping hunger of parasitic headcrabs. Freeman must violently deny the headcrabs their prize. He isn't the only one armored against the dark. Zen is littered with HEV-clad corpses. Later, Isaac Kleiner will forge the upgraded Mark V from these grim lessons. Kleiner's Mark V introduces a sprint function, neurotoxin antidotes, and the dangerous ability to siphon combine power. This desperate theft of enemy resources triggers a volatile reaction when the suit drinks the dark energy of a confiscation field. The Mark V suit drinks dark energy from the confiscation field, doubling its reserves and mending flesh with brutal efficiency. Stripped of its long jump module, it funnels power into a single lifeline for breath and speed. Before the Black Mesa tragedy, Gina Cross tests this fifth iteration under the watchful eye of Richard Keller. How it evolves into the armor worn in City 17 remains a mystery, much like Keller himself. A wheelchair-bound scientist of 55 with level 5 clearance, Keller is a phantom in Black Mesa's archives. He oversees the HEV, not a mere hazmat suit, but a carapace forged for the brutal combat of Zen. The military's powered combat vest mirrors this grim technology, drinking greedily from Black Mesa's own charging stations. The Hecu soldiers march in armor, born from the very laboratories they are sent to silence. Which armor birthed the other remains a buried secret. Within the Black Mesa training facility, scientists and security guards walk separate paths, learning to survive in a world that is already preparing to end. Guards don their armor for catastrophic emergencies, their every move scrutinized by scientists behind reinforced glass. When flesh and blood instructors retreat to observation posts, cold holographic phantoms step in to guide the doomed recruits. Hidden cameras and holographic sensors track every misstep in the facility's darkest corners. Gina Cross molds the scientists, while Miller hardens the guards, their digital ghosts taking the floor when the real instructors vanish into the bureaucracy. These shimmering echoes stand in for their creators. Keller, Kleiner, and Green guide the staff without digital phantoms, while other scientists leave holographic whispers behind, projected from hidden lenses to haunt the empty corridors. Sometimes, the ghosts materialize without a visible source. Down in Sector B, the coolant reserves and sewage tanks fester beneath the pristine administration offices of Area 2 and the restless topside dormitories of Area 8. Deep within the concrete canals, energy particle labs and rocket engine silos hide beside the coolant containment. Yet, it is Sector C, the anomalous materials laboratory, where the true nightmare waits to be unchained. Area 3's security command keeps a blind eye on the adjacent particle labs. At the heart of Sector C sits Test Chamber C-33's TA, a concrete tomb housing the colossal, humming bulk of the anti-mass spectrometer. This towering machine dwarfs the scientists who feed it anomalous materials. While ordinary spectrometers merely weigh mundane chemicals, this colossal engine in the test chamber is built to dissect the impossible. Mundane tools shatter against exotic matter and negative mass. The anti-mass spectrometer bombards these alien fragments with violent electromagnetic oscillations, forcing the unnatural samples to pulse with a terrible, hidden life. The violent oscillations rip displacement fields from the matter, tracked by Lambda's cold sensors. Pushed on a rusted cart from the dark lower levels, the final doomed payload arrives, the glowing, jagged crystals of Zen. Plucked from a fractured dimension, these Zen crystals pulse with an eerie, impossible light. Black Mesa harnesses their strange, volatile properties to tear holes in reality, chasing the dark miracle of teleportation. The pursuit of teleportation drags humanity into the border world. Zen is no planet, but a chaotic intersection of dimensions, a graveyard of floating, asteroid-like islands where Black Mesa's trespassers harvest alien flora in the dark. Gravity here is a weak, dying force. It is a miracle these fragmented rocks possess any pull at all, let alone the strength to clutch a thin, breathable atmosphere against the void of the border world. Suspended in an alien universe, the entire endless void seems to breathe. Strangely, the weak gravity does not pull toward the floating rocks, but drags endlessly downward into the abyssal dark. A careless step sends a man plummeting past the jagged islands into an endless, empty night. Perhaps these shattered rocks orbit some unseen, colossal planet, bound by physics that defy all earthly reason. In this fractured dimension, light itself behaves like a dying memory. Glowing gas clouds and cold, distant stars illuminate the floating islands, casting long shadows over a bizarre, thriving ecosystem of alien flora. The asteroid-like islands of Zen cradle a complex, borrowed ecosystem, teeming with displaced flora and fauna stolen from other worlds, while deep within Black Mesa, Sector D administration conceals mundane offices and storage vaults. Windowless and suffocating beneath low ceilings, Sector D buries cafeterias, freezing meat lockers, and a dormant missile silo deep underground, perhaps harboring the administrator's own shadowed office, just steps from Sector E's Biodome Complex. A relatively recent addition to Black Mesa, the Biodome Complex serves as a sprawling, partially reconstructed prison for Zen's captured flora and fauna, dividing its alien inmates into sterile observation zones. Trapped in artificial habitats, the alien specimens languish in mocked-up Earth landscapes and simulated Zen islands, all monitored by an aging transport control sector that feeds power to Black Mesa's sprawling monorail veins. Pumping vital energy into the transit lines, the facility gives way to Sector F, the heavily fortified Lambda complex, where a colossal nuclear reactor and its cylindrical core power Black Mesa's most guarded teleportation secrets. Deep beneath the massive primary teleporter, the original prototype labs fester in secrecy, flanked on their grim outskirts by an advanced biological facility, a waste processing plant, and the roaring turbines of Sector G. Sector G's hydroelectric dam pumps lifeblood into the entire research facility, its sprawling network of transformer substations, railways, and cargo warehouses moving heavy freight across the perimeter's watery expanse. The upper hydroelectric station stands as Sector G's beating heart, its massive river dam crowned by a lonely road that tethers the advanced biological laboratories to the distant, echoing cargo warehouses. Down on level 5, the drainage canal acts as a brutal maw for waste disposal, where a heavy freight elevator feeds refuse into two massive grinding cogwheels designed to obliterate Black Mesa's unwanted secrets. Beyond the grinding gears and a modest storage depot, the Advanced Biological Laboratory looms near the hydroelectric dam, its sterile halls suspended precariously above the churning filth of the waste processing center. Within the biological research labs, callous scientists dissect Zen fauna and monitor their brutal survival instincts, while the second floor breeds new weaponry, and the first floor houses twin sterilization chambers for the contaminated. Reserved for critical alien breaches, the sterilization chambers share the first floor with a grim surgical block, where live alien grunts float in stasis capsules and glass cages await their next extraterrestrial victims. While captive headcrabs scuttle in glass prisons below, the second floor channels immense energy into a colossal testing laser, birthing experimental horrors like the particle-accelerating Tau cannon in the name of science. Charging its lethal payload the longer the trigger is held, the Tau cannon unleashes a devastating, concussive blast across long distances, sharing its depleted uranium-235 lifeblood with the equally terrifying gluon gun. A weapon of pure, unadulterated ruin, the gluon gun projects a continuous spiraling vortex of energy, vaporizing anything caught within its devastating radius in mere seconds. Piercing armor with terrifying precision at long range, the weapon's only flaw is its ravenous appetite for ammunition, operating like a deadly fire hose equipped with a heavy nozzle and mechanical levers. Tethered by a thick hose to a heavy backpack, the experimental gun is a marvel of destruction, while deep beneath the Gamma Lab, the quarantine sectors quietly probe a fraction of Zen's monstrous inhabitants. Though some of these captive alien specimens mirror the vicious predators of Earth, their lethal instincts pale in comparison to the colossal, nightmarish Leviathans that truly rule the border world of Zen. At the bottom of this alien food chain drift the enigmatic light bugs, flickering like ethereal fireflies, glimpsed only once within the organic, fleshy cages of a floating island's cavernous heart. Released from their clawed pedestals, the glowing insects swarm through the cavern like a school of spectral fish, settling back onto the machinery to breathe life into the dormant teleporter waiting in the center. Harmless Zen boids drift like phantom fish, phasing effortlessly through solid stone. Below them, carnivorous leeches writhe in the dark water, tiny, aquatic terrors mirroring the blood-sucking worms of our own world. Pale and ravenous, these leeches will one day strip Earth's oceans of life, reigning alone in the salty abyss. Only in isolated inland waters do the forgotten songs of native frogs and insects still echo. While the aquatic ichthyosaur prowls the depths, the barnacle waits above. A muscular pillar of flesh anchored in shadow, it dangles a single pale, sticky snare from a fanged maw, hungry for the slightest touch. A passive executioner, the barnacle hoists its ensnared prey upward into crushing jaws. Blind to taste, it reels in anything that grazes its snare, violently rejecting dead trash while hungering for the warmth of living meat. This mindless glutton devours living prey far larger than its own bulk. Devoid of eyes or intellect, the barnacle exists only as a primitive trap, reacting with lethal reflex the moment flesh brushes its dangling tongue. Clustered in genderless colonies, their origins remain a grim mystery. Nearby, mouse-sized Zen clams cling to the stone, snapping their brittle shells in futile defense, a pathetic nuisance to any man swift enough to walk past. These snapping pests share their territory with Zen ears, fleshy, listening flowers mimicking mammalian anatomy. Some rest like quiet coral, while others bloom in grotesque, asymmetrical petals, waiting for the heavy tread of a bull squid. The bull squid is a bipedal nightmare of pure aggression. It thrives in the toxic decay of human sewers and radioactive sludge, finding twisted comfort in chemical filth, just as it does in Zen's healing pools. Wading through glowing, restorative waters, the beast cuts a prehistoric silhouette. Built like a deformed theropod, its muscular legs and heavy tail support a necklace, hulking mass of predatory muscle. A meter high and twice as long, its spotted hide glistens with amphibian slime. Bright red tentacles writhe around a hungry maw, ready to snatch prey as the beast charges with the terrifying speed of a rabid bull. Coated in a slick, toxic sweat, the creature's sandy brown hide is mottled with dark spots. In the dim light, it wears the deceptive, patterned coat of a stalking jungle cat, masking its alien origins. Kept under the cold lights of Black Mesa's Sector E, these slimy, frog-like brutes prove fiercely territorial. They guard their stolen corners of the facility with blind rage, slaughtering anything that breathes, even their own kind. Driven by a murderous instinct, they obliterate all in sight, curiously sparing only the hound eyes. Step too close, and you meet the crushing snap of jaws or the bone-breaking sweep of a heavy tail. From the shadows, it hurls globs of toxic bile, clumsy but devastating. It saves its tail for the wounded, a final executioner's blow. Elsewhere, the three-legged hound eye scuttles into view, a fragile thorax balanced on unnatural limbs. Painted in sickly yellow-green and striped with pale blue, the hound eye bears no face, only a massive, faceted black eye. It speaks in high, nervous squeaks and guttural barks, echoing the feral dogs of a ruined Earth. Named for their canine mannerisms, these pack hunters were caged and studied in the sterile biodome of Sector E. They are social killers, relying on the strength of the pack to hunt and survive the dark. A lone hound eye is a trembling coward, but gather three in the shadows, and their fear curdles into aggression, unleashing deafening sonic shockwaves that shatter concrete and rupture the eardrums of their prey. Their massive, lidless gaze rarely breaks, blinking only in the grip of pure panic. These carnivorous scavengers sleep huddled together in the damp dark, their twitching bodies snapping awake at the slightest scrape of a boot. A soft footfall stirs them into a lazy, groggy crawl, but a loud crack or a leader's warning sends the entire pack lunging forward, their sonic shrieks shifting in violent color and lethal intensity. The pack's deadly resonance hinges on its alpha. Kill the leader, and their shockwaves wither into a pathetic hum. Nearby, the chum toad lurks, a bloated alien amphibian mirroring the ugly warts of an earthly swamp. Discovered in the alien border world of Zen, these purple-skinned amphibians boast a single, feline red eye and dorsal spikes. Harmless by nature, The creatures feign death when startled, twitching violently upon their backs in a desperate pantomime. Posing no threat to humanity, these bizarre toads idle upon alien stones until danger approaches. When cornered, they vanish into the ether, leaving behind a distinct violet portal instead of the usual sickly green. Beneath the murky waters lurks the ichthyosaur, a massive aquatic predator from Zen. Sharing only a carnivorous appetite and sheer scale with its extinct Earth namesake, this dark green Leviathan dominates the alien depths. Sporting a massive crested skull and a maw of endlessly growing teeth, the beast propels itself with a powerful tail. It drags its heavy frame across the muddy abyss, waiting to impale unsuspecting prey on dagger-like claws. Drifting through the void is the manta, a ray-like entity native to Zen. The solitary, blue-brown variant glides peacefully above the alien soil, tilling the strange earth below with a sweeping, luminescent energy beam. A deadlier, twin-tailed variant serves as the Nihilanth's aerial vanguard, darting through the sky with terrifying agility. These living dropships ferry alien troops to the slaughter, raining down searing energy beams upon the battlefield. Defying all known aerodynamics, these biological aircraft match the blistering speed of Earth's finest military jets. From their pale underbellies, they unleash devastating energy beams, cutting down any resistance that dares to stand against them. Flocks of avian boids cut through the alien sky, their fin-like wings beating a hypnotic, resonant rhythm. The colored variants boast a vivid gradient of yellow and crimson, watching the world through 8 unblinking red eyes. Trailing a designated leader, the yellow variant cuts a more bat-like silhouette, with clawed, fingered wings and a pale beige underbelly. Thick crimson eyes pierce the gloom, guiding the flock through the treacherous border world. Drifting aimlessly above the alien dirt, the translucent protozoan remains a harmless, indestructible phantom of the ecosystem. Meanwhile, the head crab, a fleshy, watermelon-sized parasite, stands as Zen's most prolific and ravenous nightmare. Propelled by 4 spindly legs, the parasite leaps to ambush its prey. Beneath its fleshy bulk lies a gaping maw and a hidden beak, designed to latch onto a victim's skull with a death grip. Studied extensively within the sterile confines of Black Mesa, these blind horrors seemingly lack external ears or eyes. Yet, they track their prey with ruthless precision, often burrowing into the dirt to await the perfect ambush. The standard head crab scuttles across the cold floor on 4 spindly limbs, preparing to launch its fleshy mass. Finding a human host, it violently hijacks the nervous system, twisting the victim into a mindless, shambling zombie. Out of countless thousands, only a rare few survive the brutal gauntlet of evolution to become a gonarch. This towering, grotesque matriarch represents the terrifying apex of the head crab's parasitic life cycle. Encased in a nearly impenetrable exoskeleton, the towering gonarch shrugs off heavy gunfire with ease. From its fleshy sac, the matriarch endlessly births a squirming tide of infant parasites, flooding the battlefield with newborn horrors. While the infant swarm overwhelms through sheer numbers, the fast head crab strikes with terrifying speed. Stripped of excess flesh, this spider-like variant uses its elongated, spindly claws to cling silently to shadowed ceilings and walls. Lurking in the darkest corners, the poison head crab bears little resemblance to its common kin. Covered in sparse hairs and pitch-black skin, its swollen back displays a sinister white pattern, reminiscent of a venomous cross spider. Crouching low to the ground, the venomous variant scales concrete walls to await its prey. Elsewhere, the armored head crab deflects incoming fire with a hardened shell, hiding a fatal vulnerability beneath its soft, exposed belly. The grotesque reviver burrows directly into a corpse's chest cavity, violently reanimating the dead flesh to fight once more. Yet, if surgically stripped of its beak, even a head crab can be rendered harmless and domesticated. Stripped of its neurotoxin and zombifying beak, the parasite becomes a docile companion, much like Dr. Isaac Kleiner's beloved pet, Lamar. Defanged and domesticated, the once fearsome predator is reduced to a harmless, fleshy curiosity. Stripped of their beaks by Dr. Isaac Kleiner, the head crabs become harmless pets. Yet, as future Earth will learn, these parasites thrive by piercing skulls, hijacking nervous systems, and trapping living, helpless hosts inside rapid, nightmarish mutations. The agonizing transformation takes mere minutes, a grim fate we will revisit. This incomplete ledger of Zen's horrors only scratches the surface of Black Mesa's discoveries. Now, we drift back to the hazy 2000s, an era Valve intentionally obscures. The fandom whispers that these dark events unfold anywhere between 2000 and 2009, leaving the birth dates of our tragic cast in shadow. Yet, a translated DTF article surfaces, offering a new thread in this tangled web. A dedicated investigator named Ninefield has scoured the archives of every released game, hunting for clues. We will return to his findings, but for now, the fandom offers a trail of indirect, blood-stained facts. These scattered clues attempt to pin down the elusive 200X timeline. Deep within the pages of Raising the Bar, a scribbled note from writer Mark Laidlaw points a lonely finger at March 31st, 2003. The clock reads 1633, an unconfirmed hour in Valve's grand design. Across the doomed facility, identical low-resolution calendars hang on sterile walls, forever frozen on a bleak December, marking the 1st, 8th, and 15th days. Those December dates align perfectly with Sundays, quietly suggesting the year is 2002. Yet, a chilling discrepancy remains. Why do these forgotten calendars display a month so far removed from the officially sanctioned timeline? The official record claims May 16th. Perhaps the catastrophe struck long after 2002, leaving these December calendars months out of date. A grim testament to Black Mesa's bureaucratic neglect, or the simple, fatal forgetfulness of doomed men. This quiet negligence hints the disaster unfolded in 2003, as ignoring outdated calendars for years strains belief. Then, a real-world anomaly surfaces. On March 24, 2010, Game Informer published a newly expanded timeline for Aperture Science. Originally penned by Eric Woolpaw in 2006, this revised history shifted dates, suggesting the Black Mesa incident mirrored Half-Life's 1998 release rather than the ambiguous 200X. Yet, Mark Laidlaw firmly rejected this retroactive 1998 timeline. Laidlaw insisted the original 200X designation remains the only truth. Whether Woolpaw's deviation was a calculated misdirection or a simple error, the Aperture Science records are now forcibly realigned to that same hazy 200X decade. Returning to the DTF investigation, the author claims the official timeline is a lie. While the full conspiracy demands its own spotlight, Ninefield builds his case on quiet impossibilities, arguing Gordon Freeman lacked the time to forge deep bonds with the entire Black Mesa staff in mere days. Scrutinizing dateless newspaper textures, shifting moon phases, and expiration dates on ID cards from Half-Life, Alyx, the investigator pieces together a startling new conclusion. He deduces the devastating 7-hour war could not have erupted after December 5, 2001. It is a sharp, undeniable argument. Unraveling the textures of Half-Life, Alyx, he places the Black Mesa incident between Tuesday, December 5th, and Thursday, December 7th, 2000, shattering the official May 16th narrative. This places the Combine's swift, brutal 7-hour war on January 2nd, 2001, leaving the true timeline lost in a fog of conflicting evidence. Yet, developers often leave careless fingerprints, placing a random moon in the digital sky. This fragile theory might just be shadows and dust. I will anchor us to the official dates. You must choose your own truth. With the calendar settled, the grim machinery of fate begins to turn. Enter Corporal Adrian Shepard, a 22-year-old Marine stationed at Arizona's Santiago base, sharpening his lethal skills under the unforgiving HICU banner. His May 3rd journal bleeds frustration, another brutal day in the dirt. He notes a pale, strange civilian, the G-Man, stalking the base. Rumors whisper of government recruitment or shadowy research, a dark invitation Shepard eagerly desires. Craving adventure, the young Marine yearns for a way out. Meanwhile, far from the mud, Gordon Freeman's former MIT mentor, Dr. Isaac Kleiner, basks in academic glory, his face gracing the glossy cover of Popular Scientist. Heralded for unlocking the next level of quantum physics, Kleiner authors a definitive text on teleportation. The back cover sings his praises, cementing the brilliant pioneer's legacy just before the world he knows violently ends. Isaac Kleiner, a pioneer of quantum teleportation, pulls the strings. He slips Gordon Freeman's name to civilian HR, leveraging the physicist's Innsbruck credentials to edge out a fierce rival for the coveted Black Mesa post. That rival is Judith Mossman, left in the cold when Freeman's acceptance letter arrives on May 5th. Elsewhere, Kleiner battles Erna Magnuson for grants, while Corporal Shepard scribbles a dark premonition on May 7th. Corporal Shepard's journal notes a lingering shadow, a government man in a sharp suit, clutching a briefcase. Looking more like a grim insurance agent than a spook, the G-Man observes the grueling training, his motives an impenetrable abyss. May 9th bleeds into the same grueling routine, but as the squad gathers for their morning run, the drill instructor shatters the monotony, giving them exactly 1 week to master a brutal new art. They are to become masters of indoor combat, confined to the simulation center. It is a claustrophobic violence rarely taught in boot camp. Shepard wonders if this is a mere test of adaptability or preparation for something darker. That same day, Barney Calhoun receives his transfer orders for a May 15th blue shift. The missive is signed by a cryptic LM, an HR phantom operating under the direct shadow of Administrator Wallace Breen. This same LM had previously courted Freeman in Austria. Calhoun, a Martinson College dropout, settles into his Level 3 security role and Level 8 dorms, already sharing drinks and secrets with scientists Isaac Kleiner and Gordon Freeman. Calhoun's mandate is clear: patrol the sectors and babysit the science teams. But in a crisis, his life becomes expendable. The facility, the equipment, and the eggheads come first. A guard's survival is merely an afterthought. On May 11th, Dr. Colette Green receives a chilling directive. The Oversight Committee demands the purest Zen crystal, sample GG3TT83, ignoring the erratic spectral fluctuations of its predecessor to push forward a dangerous substitution. The administration rubber stamps the swap, fully aware they are tearing up the standard protocols for anomalous materials. They embrace the risk, blind to the catastrophic consequences brewing in the name of progress. At 31, Colette Green holds Level 4 clearance in the Anomalous Materials Lab. She is a brilliant mind, forged in the fires of electrical engineering and robotics, now standing at the edge of the abyss. Clad in a burgundy HEV suit, the Carnegie Mellon doctor prepares for the unknown. Meanwhile, on May 12th, Barney Calhoun submits to a retinal scan, trading his biometric identity for a pay bump and specialized training. As Calhoun's drills begin, Shepard inks another paranoid journal entry. Rumors of a blind mission infect the barracks. The name Black Mesa is whispered in the dark, a phantom complex hiding secret research from the world. By May 13th, Calhoun finishes his drills, while Gina Cross runs mass spectrometer overload simulations. The next day, miles away at Aperture Science, a newly awakened GLaDOS enacts a cruel deception during a seemingly innocent bring your daughter to work day. A vital anomalous materials briefing between Kleiner and Green is fatally delayed to June. By May 16th, the gears of fate lock into place. Barney Calhoun clocks into his blue shift, completely unaware of the looming nightmare. Calhoun patrols the medium security corridors of Area 3. Across the sprawling subterranean labyrinth of sectors A, B, and C, a rainbow of security shifts stand their ground, while the Violet team waits in restless standby. Shepard's pen scratches out a grim confirmation. They are deploying to Black Mesa. He knows only that scientists toil there in secret, and that his squad must be ready to strike by dawn, their true purpose obscured. The corporal hopes the bizarre, quiet assignment gets scrubbed, hungry for the visceral thrill of real combat. Ironically, this very day was originally slated to be Gordon Freeman's first descent into the Black Mesa facility. Yet history shifts, revealing the 27-year-old physicist had already been walking those sterile halls. Armed with level 3 clearance, Freeman toils deep within Sector C, a quiet researcher in the Anomalous Materials Lab, blind to the approaching storm. He sleeps alone in room 309, unaware that his mysterious benefactor is the enigmatic G-Man. As night falls, Gina Cross receives her final, fateful instructions from Richard Keller, pushing the doomed facility closer to the brink. The G-Man's shadow lengthens. At 8:30 p.m., Richard Keller briefs Gina Cross on the Mark V HEV prototype, while Dawn, on May 16th, finds Adrian Shepard inexplicably elevated to the advanced roster just as the G-Man arrives. The suited figure observes the Marine boot camp in silence. By 7:30 a.m., Gordon Freeman steps into his HEV suit for Sector A training, oblivious to the cascading system failures already plaguing Black Mesa at 8:30. A Sector C lobby guard mutters about a system crash 20 minutes past. At 8:42 a.m., Barney Calhoun boards the tram from the Area 8 dormitories, descending toward his second shift in the medium security bowels of Sector C. Calhoun reaches his post just as Gordon Freeman finally boards his own inbound tram at 8:47 a.m. The theoretical physicist is already half an hour late to his own funeral. By 8:58 a.m., the pieces are set on the board. Barney strides toward a Sector G elevator, while Gina Cross delivers the doomed sample cart, descending to join Colette Green in the subterranean shadows beneath the test chamber. Green readies the lower chamber, pushing the anti-mass spectrometer to a dangerous 105% capacity. Above them, Eli Vance and Isaac Kleiner scramble to patch failing, unprepared equipment as the facility groans under the strain. Dr. Keller monitors the women remotely through a flickering terminal, with Dr. Rosenberg lurking somewhere nearby. Deep in Sector C, Gordon and the science team prepare to subject sample GG3883 to the anti-mass spectrometer. Following a tragically standard procedure, Freeman ascends the cold metal stairs to the balcony. With a heavy throw of the switch, he awakens the massive rotors of the anti-mass spectrometer. The scientists push the machine to its limits, blindly dismissing a 5% capacitor overload as standard variance. The crystalline sample rises from the floor, and Gordon shoves it directly into the blinding beam. A supercomputer tracking the unstable crystal violently shorts out, unable to handle the overloaded threshold. Crushing bureaucratic pressure, gross negligence, and fractured communication finally converge into a singular, catastrophic disaster. The fractured crystal triggers a resonance cascade, tearing the fabric of reality wide open. This catastrophic anomaly bleeds into the atmosphere, unleashing a violent portal storm across the doomed facility. The space-time continuum violently ruptures, allowing nightmarish entities from Zen to materialize from thin air onto Earth's soil. Such a perfect storm of fatal errors reeks of deliberate outside interference. The motive behind the madness matters deeply. It is time to examine the architect of this tragedy, the G-Man. This sinister, interdimensional bureaucrat remains the bleeding heart of the mystery. Wielding powers far beyond human comprehension, this enigmatic figure first catches Freeman's eye during the morning commute, standing silently in a stalled tramcar on the adjacent Sector C tracks. Despite Freeman passing him by, the G-Man impossibly beats the physicist to the subterranean control rooms. Before the disaster, he is spotted in a sealed anomalous materials office, fiercely arguing. Soundproof glass reduces his heated debate with a scientist to mere murmurs. At boot camp, Shepard spots him through a window, whispering to an officer while casting cold glances at the corporal. Gina, Colette, and Barney only glimpse him by accident, beneath his notice. He is an omnipresent phantom, a strange and mysterious observer who haunts the periphery of every survivor's nightmare. The original script dubs him a mystery man with a briefcase. He melts into dead-end shadows, guiding prey towards salvation or slaughter on a whim, his true motives locked away. When the alien world burns, he offers employment on behalf of unseen masters. He plays the survivors like pawns on a chessboard, occasionally plucking a favored piece from certain death. Whether this mercy stems from compassion or cold calculation remains a bitter mystery. The mounting evidence suggests this phantom architect personally orchestrated the entire Black Mesa massacre from the shadows. Whispers linger that the G-Man orchestrated the Black Mesa incident, his pale hands effortlessly manipulating nuclear warheads and teleporters, bending time itself while projecting his voice directly into a fractured mind. Slipping through the cracks of time with chilling foresight, he alters fate only when his unseen employers permit, clutching a mysterious briefcase branded with the Black Mesa logo like a grim talisman. Whatever secrets fester inside that locked case, to the doomed witnesses, the G-Man is merely a haunting government shadow, stalking every disaster zone, a silent prologue to the Resonance Cascade. The experiment shatters reality, violently tossing Gordon Freeman between Earth and the border world of Zen, as hostile alien horrors pour through the fractured dimensional barrier into a panicked facility. Zen's monstrous denizens immediately butcher the terrified Black Mesa scientists, while the crystal's violent resonance triggers a localized earthquake that crushes concrete corridors and severs the facility's lifeblood. The military swiftly deploys to bury the catastrophic mistake, sending Corporal Adrian Shepard and his Goose 7 unit cutting through the desert sky aboard a heavily armed Osprey. Tasked with silencing both the alien threat and the surviving scientists, Shepard approaches, while deep below, Barney Calhoun's repaired Sector G elevator plummets into darkness as the Resonance Cascade strikes. The plunging elevator claims 2 scientists and knocks Barney cold, while Gordon Freeman awakens in a crumbling test chamber, stepping out to find his shattered workplace crawling with otherworldly nightmares. Parasitic headcrabs latch onto skulls, hijacking the nervous system while leaving the trapped victim conscious enough to scream for help from within their own rotting, hijacked flesh. Destroying the host merely frees the parasite, while some bisected victims are forced to drag their mangled torsos across the blood-stained floor, a grim testament to the headcrab's diverse mutations. The standard infected wander as weak, tragic husks, their rib cages violently torn open to form a grotesque, bloody maw designed to feed on the flesh of their former colleagues. Sluggish and clumsy, these groaning monstrosities often slumber in shadowed corners, while the parasite slowly digests them, an agonizing gestation that eventually births the hulking terror known as the Gnome. Forged in the crucible of prolonged survival and bathed in Black Mesa's leaking radiation, the standard zombie mutates further, shedding its frail humanity to become an apex predator. The host's muscle mass swells as the chest cavity ruptures into a vertical, projectile-vomiting maw, while the controlling parasite stretches thin, revealing the victim's weeping eyes beneath the flesh. Stripped of fat and skin, the fast zombie is a flayed nightmare of taut muscle and bone, trading durability for a terrifying, relentless agility granted by its specialized parasite. Consumed by a demanding parasite, these flayed horrors scale rusted pipes with sickening grace, leaping across vast rooftops to hunt their prey despite their fragile, rotting frames. Lacking the strength to hurl debris, the agile variants pale before the poison zombie, a bloated, lumbering sponge of toxic flesh, swollen to grotesque proportions by venomous parasites. Burdened by a cluster of venomous passengers, this hunched, swollen abomination announces its agonizing approach with wet, ragged breathing that echoes through the suffocating darkness of the facility. Shrieking when struck, this bloated carrier hurls its venomous passengers through the shadows, resorting to brutal, desperate claw strikes only when stripped of its parasitic ammunition. Even the Combine's augmented soldiers fall to the parasite, rising as armored zombines that shamble with agonizing slowness before suddenly sprinting forward to crush their terrified prey. A sudden dash lets the zombine ambush its prey, slashing with brutal claws. When cornered, it primes a live grenade in a desperate kamikaze strike, obliterating itself to inflict devastating collateral damage. The parasite deliberately selects a Combine soldier, favoring the host's heavy armor and explosive arsenal over fragile civilian flesh. Though this unholy union boasts terrifying resilience, such abominations do not yet exist in this fractured timeline. Amidst the facility's smoking ruins, Gordon Freeman encounters Isaac Kleiner and Eli Vance. The surviving scientists brief their colleague, knowing his armored HEV suit grants him a fighting chance in this unfolding nightmare. Armed and armored, Freeman adapts to the slaughter with grim efficiency, turning his cursory hazard training against the alien invaders. From the shadows, the G-Man watches his new pawn carve a bloody path through the chaos. Colette and Gina carve through hostile Zen fauna to reach Keller and Rosenberg, torn between sealing the dimensional rift or fleeing to the surface for military aid. The desperate survivors gamble on Rosenberg's escape plan. Escorting Rosenberg through the subterranean rail network, Gina and Colette reach the communications array. They align the satellite dish to summon military rescue, leaving the Doctor behind as they descend back into Keller's claustrophobic domain. Keller dispatches the duo to restart the damping field, hoping to stave off a second resonance cascade. Above the chaotic alien teleportations, military helicopters slice through the sky, carrying Corporal Adrian Shepard toward the slaughter. Nearing landing zone 112, Shepard's squadron is abruptly swarmed by alien manta rays. The sky erupts in fire as their transport plummets, plunging the young corporal into a dark, concussive void amidst the burning wreckage. Drifting in and out of consciousness, Shepard witnesses his Hiku brothers locked in a brutal firefight with Zen invaders. He awakens in a makeshift triage, watching a lone medic abandon him to repel surging vortigons. The corporal slips back into darkness as the slaughter continues. The HECU, the Hazardous Environment Combat Unit, represents the government's ruthless solution, a specialized marine force dispatched to bury Black Mesa's secrets in blood. Forged for claustrophobic indoor warfare and anomalous threats, these elite Marines are a lethal cleanup crew. Alongside the shadowy Black Ops, they descend upon the doomed facility to silence the scientists and the alien menace alike. To survive the facility's lethal hazards, the HECU deploy their own grim answer to the HEV suit, the powered combat vest. This heavy armor shields the grunts from the toxic fallout of a dying laboratory. Fortified against biological and radioactive horrors, the PCV integrates an M40 gas mask and night vision. An automated morphine dispenser floods the soldiers' veins, forcing broken bodies to keep fighting through agonizing, fatal trauma. A tactical HUD projects ammo counts and vital signs directly into the soldiers' vision, while an onboard computer coldly monitors their fading heartbeat, calculating the exact moment a man becomes a casualty of war. Unlike the HEV suit's sterile voice, the vest offers no auditory comfort, relying solely on visual data. Yet, fully charged, this heavy plating absorbs massive kinetic trauma, keeping the doomed Marines standing amidst the carnage. The HECU deploys a specialized roster of killers, heavy gunners, engineers, snipers, and field medics. Much like the desperate scientists they hunt, these medics patch up shredded flesh without relying on the facility's medical stations. Armed with heavy sidearms, the medics fight alongside combat engineers. Masked by thick welding goggles, these technicians wield searing torches to cut through Black Mesa's sealed bulkheads, breaching the facility's most secure, blood-stained corridors. While engineers pack heavy pistols for close-quarters survival, the machine gunners lay down suppressive fire with roaring M249s. From the high ground, unseen snipers peer through M40A1 scopes, executing survivors with chilling, calculated precision. Far from the slaughter, the military police enforce strict discipline at the Santiago base. Marked only by their distinct armbands, these guards maintain order among the ranks, oblivious to the alien nightmare consuming their brothers. Leaving the doomed Marines to their fate, the narrative shifts back to Gordon Freeman. He breaches the blood-spattered office complex, where a handful of terrified scientists have barricaded themselves against the encroaching alien horde. Freeman breaches the office complex, finding desperate scientists entombed behind makeshift barricades as alien horrors materialize from the ether. Whispers absolve him of the disaster, praising a military rescue, long after he locked eyes with his first Vortigaunt. The Nihilanth waits in the void, the architect of the Black Mesa invasion and Zen's supreme commander. A grotesque, levitating fetus with a swollen skull and withered frame, it shares a dark lineage with the border world's other sentient anomalies. Bound by the same cruel shackles as the Vortigaunts it commands, the creature bears the brutal surgical scars of a darker past. Its amputated, vestigial limbs tell a grim tale of long captivity beneath the Combine's crushing heel. Driven from a homeworld consumed by the Combine long before the Black Mesa incident, the fugitive entity sought refuge in the border world of Zen. There, it encountered the Vortigons, a deeply social, brilliant species already chained by generational servitude. Chains forged the very soul of Vortigaunt culture, their tragic history preserved in whispered poetry and ancestral songs. Before the yoke of slavery, they were humble shepherds, cultivating fierce antlions for the priceless, glowing extract harvested from their hives. These shackled mystics stand alone as the only known entities capable of defying the G-Man's insidious influence, perhaps eclipsing his own dark power. When provoked, they unleash devastating arcs of emerald electricity and razor-sharp claws upon their tormentors. Yet beneath their lethal potential lies a gentle nature, guided by latent telekinetic gifts. Every Vortigaunt is tethered to the Vortessence, a mystical, unseen fabric, weaving their minds into a vast, collective consciousness, pulsing with ancient wisdom. This shared consciousness grants them visions of tomorrow, alongside the power to mend flesh and tear through the fabric of space. Fleeing to Zen, the desperate Vortigaunts found no sanctuary, only a dark pact of enslavement under the tyrannical Nihilanth. They fled their conquered homeworld, seeking refuge in the Zen dimension. But sanctuary is a myth. The tyrant Nihilanth merely forged new chains, drafting the refugees into a captive army managed by floating overseers. These psychic wardens must hover close to enforce obedience. Without them, the Zen-bound Vortigaunts show no malice toward humanity. Yet on Earth, the Nihilanth's grip tightens across dimensions, commanding them remotely through the controllers, whose grotesque forms mirror their master. Barely taller than a man, these floating jailers hurl searing spheres of energy as their swollen skulls peel open like grotesque blossoms. With forward-bending joints, a vestigial third arm sprouting from their chests, and jagged feet, they are nightmares made flesh. The Nihilanth's true muscle lies in the alien grunts, towering, hyper-aggressive brutes engineered for slaughter. They wield living, biological cannons that unleash swarms of ravenous, homing insects, hunting down terrified prey through the darkest, blood-slicked corridors of the facility. These hulking soldiers share a twisted lineage with the Vortigaunts, bearing multiple crimson eyes, digitigrade legs, and a feeding appendage jutting from their sternums. They are all refugees of Combine slavery, their flesh marred by the cold steel of alien shackles. Craving absolute dominion over his fractured empire, the Nihilanth tightened the leash on the Vortigaunts. Forced into grueling labor, these enslaved mystics lightly constructed the very flesh factories that would churn out the tyrant's endless ranks of brutal, vat-grown infantry. Deep within the border world, a grotesque assembly line birthed thousands of these biological soldiers, bred only for war. When the arrogant scientists of Black Mesa finally pierced the dimensional veil, they stepped blindly into this sleeping, militarized nightmare. At first, the tyrant watched the human trespassers with cold indifference, leaving them to the native beasts while they abducted his soldiers for cruel study. But the Black Mesa incident shattered the stalemate, offering the Nihilanth a permanent escape from Combine hunters. Earth became his new sanctuary. As the dimensional rift tore the sky apart, a tidal wave of Zen predators and enslaved soldiers flooded the facility. Meanwhile, in the ruined bowels of the complex, Barney Calhoun awakens in a shattered elevator. Surrounded by the butchered remains of his colleagues, Calhoun crawls from the wreckage into a sprawling industrial graveyard. Deep within the claustrophobic sewers, he watches in silent horror as ruthless Hikyu Marines casually discard murdered scientists into the dark, rushing water. The grim truth washes over Calhoun. The military isn't here for a rescue, but a bloody cover-up, sealing the doomed staff inside their concrete tomb. Miles away, fighting through choked corridors and alien viscera, Gordon Freeman claws his way toward the surface. Hope flickers when Freeman hears of a military extraction, only to die the moment he witnesses a Marine execute an unarmed scientist in cold blood. The grim reality sets in. The soldiers are here to erase the aliens, the experiment, and every living witness. Shrouded in night vision optics, the male Black Ops assassins wield MP5s and sniper rifles, eschewing shotguns entirely. Driving black-painted HQ armor, these elite killers eclipse the standard grunts, executing close-quarter slaughter with terrifying surgical precision. These phantoms operate in absolute silence, refusing to utter a single cry, even as bullets tear through their flesh. Surviving their gauntlet, Gordon walks blindly into a military ambush, beaten unconscious by soldiers defying their capture-alive orders. Vengeful Marines dump the scientist into a trash compactor, eager to execute the man who slaughtered their brothers. Earlier, Barney and Rosenberg breach Black Mesa's decaying prototype labs, where desperate minds have resurrected an abandoned teleporter. To tether the machine, Barney must plunge into the alien abyss of Zen and trigger a focal relay. Deep within a sealed, forgotten sector, Calhoun, Rosenberg, Bennett, and Simmons desperately coax the ancient prototype back to life. Calhoun returns from the alien border world, only to find the teleporter's battery bled dry. He descends into the facility's darkened power plant to charge a fresh cell, stepping straight into the crosshairs of descending special forces. Caught in a brutal crossfire between elite soldiers and otherworldly horrors, Barney forces the generators to life. With the battery humming, he mans the controls, holding the gateway open as the frantic scientists flee the doomed complex. Gunfire shatters the control room as Calhoun dives into the portal, materializing beside the survivors at the south tunnel. While Bennett pries a rusted gate, Rosenberg approaches the battered guard, his grateful smile fading into sudden dread. The portal's grip violently yanks Calhoun back, throwing him across a jagged Zen platform before depositing him in a shadowy Black Mesa storage room. Through the gloom, he watches two grunts dragging an unconscious Gordon Freeman. The temporal whiplash snaps Calhoun back to the idling SUV, leaving Freeman to his grim fate. As the four survivors finally speed away from Black Mesa, Gordon slowly regains consciousness in the crushing dark of the compactor. Escaping the crushing metal jaws through a rusted vent, Freeman drops into an automated waste processing facility. With every security door sealed tight, his only path forward lies along the grinding, blood-stained conveyor belts of the plant. Navigating a mechanical hellscape of descending presses, radioactive vats, and roaring incinerators, Gordon survives the industrial slaughterhouse. Emerging into classified laboratories, he uncovers chilling evidence of Black Mesa's long-standing, secretive obsession with the alien border world. These sterile halls prove humanity was dissecting alien grunts long before the Cascade. Ascending the facility, Gordon claims the experimental Tau cannon, a volatile prototype that already vaporized its creators during a catastrophic alt-fire overload. Stepping over the scorched remains of careless scientists, Freeman aligns 4 heavy lasers into a single, blinding emitter. The concentrated beam obliterates a reinforced wall, carving a jagged, smoking descent into the facility's lower depths. In the subterranean gloom, 3 trembling scientists bypass a retinal scanner to grant Freeman his exit. They whisper grim warnings of the slaughter above before Gordon steps out into the unforgiving glare of the surface. The sunlit desert has become a sprawling abattoir where outgunned HQ forces are butchered by alien invaders. Scaling the blood-slicked canyon cliffs to bypass the massacre, Freeman finally seeks refuge in the cold earth below. Hours earlier, Corporal Adrian Shepard awakens in a makeshift infirmary, dragged from the wreckage by the very scientists he was sent to silence. The lone surviving Marine straps his heavy armor back onto his bruised frame. Wading through corridors choked with the mutilated dead, the corporal reaches a downed aircraft's radio. Through the static, a desperate voice orders a full military evacuation of Black Mesa, giving Shepard a new rally point. The transmission cuts through the carnage, a frantic lifeline in the dark. Gripping his weapon, Adrian carves a bloody path toward the extraction zone, desperate to outrun the collapsing nightmare of the facility. Broken by the alien onslaught and their failure to execute Freeman, the military sounds the retreat. As airstrikes rain fire upon Black Mesa to cover their cowardly flight, Gordon descends into the facility's subterranean vaults. Evading the bombardment through flooded subterranean canals, Freeman breaches the surface at the Lambda complex. He shatters an Abrams tank, blockading the gates, and plunges into the labs, while Shepard rides a blood-stained monorail elsewhere. Emerging from the monorail's rusted belly, Corporal Shepard discovers a heavy-set guard wrestling a candy machine amidst the slaughter. They navigate blood-slicked corridors until a glass partition reveals a new nightmare, the Shock Trooper. The alien executioner slaughters a guard, snatching a screaming scientist before vanishing into the dimensional ether. Shepard pushes toward the extraction point, ordered to the helipad, but a familiar man in a sharp suit intervenes. The G-Man seals the blast door, leaving the corporal to watch his salvation lift into the smog-choked sky. Abandoned, Shepard now faces Race X, a breed of interdimensional horrors stalking only him and his stranded brothers. These bizarre monstrosities exist solely within this isolated nightmare, never to be witnessed again in the wider Black Mesa incident. Their very existence casts a long, lingering shadow over the canonical truth of Shepard's survival. The architects of this universe remain divided. Gabe Newell dismisses these creatures, while scribe Mark Laidlaw leaves them to rot in the dark, washing his hands of an expansion he never truly penned. Birthed by the minds at Gearbox, Race X manifests as a sudden, overwhelming plague upon the crumbling Black Mesa facility. They are trespassers from a void far beyond the alien border world of Zen. The Shock Troopers serve as the brutal vanguard of this invading force. Towering bipedal nightmares with 4 grasping arms, they are clad in thick insectoid plating, forged for the relentless grind of interdimensional war. A single, unblinking eye dominates their torso, radiating a cold intelligence. These shock troops have weaponized the very fabric of space, blinking in and out of the slaughter with innate, terrifying precision to command their lesser beasts. Pit drones pour through the rifts, hunched, bipedal terrors with writhing facial tentacles and scythe-like claws. Hunting in vicious packs, these swift predators flank their desperate prey, turning the facility's claustrophobic halls into a slaughterhouse. Feasting on the dead, they pave the way for the Voltigor. This hulking 4-legged behemoth swings massive scythe arms, its hidden maw of grinding teeth concealed beneath a grotesque veil of twitching facial tentacles. Brimming with raw, aggressive power, the Voltigor discharges devastating arcs of electricity, echoing the lethal strikes of the enslaved Vortigaunts. Meanwhile, the shock troopers wield living, squirming parasites as their weapons of choice. The shock roach is a 6-legged, segmented nightmare. Plucked from a fallen trooper, it becomes a bioweapon. Left alone, the orphaned parasite leaps at the nearest throat, hungry for blood like a frantic head crab. Bound in dark symbiosis, the roach generates endless electrical ammunition, echoing the alien grunt's living hive hand. Yet another horror is the spore launcher, a writhing, tadpole-like larva consisting of a hungry maw and thrashing tails. Trapped in the aquatic prisons of Sector E's biodome, these amphibious larvae prove that Black Mesa's hubris extended across Zen, but Race X remained entirely unknown before the Cascade, only invading the ruined facility later to unleash their living artillery. Cradled on a soldier's shoulder, the larva wraps its tail around human flesh. Fed from the toxic flora blooming across the ruined complex, its mandible-ringed mouth violently regurgitates baseball-sized biological spores at encroaching targets. The creature vomits these noxious spheres as deadly projectiles. Yet, Race X's sudden, isolated arrival breeds doubt among the survivors, even as the Resonance Cascade's tearing portal storms provide a grim invitation for their invasion. Seizing the dimensional fractures, these interlopers bypass the border world entirely. Black Mesa's bleeding staff could only stare in horror at a force completely alien to their Zen catalogs, hastily branding the mysterious invaders as Race X. Operating in the shadows of the cosmic war between the Combine and Nihilanth's armies, Race X pursues a purely biological imperative. Their endgame is planetary consumption, preparing the soil for the monstrous gene worm. Leaving the apocalyptic worm for another time, Shepard plunges deeper into the facility's guts. In the damp service tunnels, he watches alien flora violently root itself into the concrete, terraforming Earth into a new Zen. The Corporal stumbles upon stranded Special Forces operatives, forgotten men left to die in the dark. Together, they carve a bloody path through the ruined offices, cutting down waves of enslaved Vortigaunts in their desperate exodus. Carving a bloody path through shattered offices, the Corporal breaches the hangar. Two black-clad operatives are wrestling a nuclear warhead into a transport truck. Their eyes meet his, and the gunfire begins. Deep within the overrun Lambda complex, Gordon Freeman discovers a clutch of terrified scientists hiding in the shadows. They hand him a desperate ultimatum: flood the reactor core, or the teleportation labs remain sealed. The reactor floods, and Freeman plunges into the esoteric machinery of the portal system. The scientists reveal a grim truth. This invasion is orchestrated, held open by a godlike entity lurking in the border dimension. To sever the connection, the creature must die in its own realm. Burdened with this impossible execution, Freeman is strapped into a long jump module for his HEV suit, preparing to vault into the alien abyss. Alien controllers swarm the chamber as Freeman vanishes into the rift. Adrian bursts into the hall, just in time to watch the scientist's back disappear, before a separate displacement yanks him from the slaughter. The Corporal crashes onto the alien soil of Zen. In the dirt, he unearths a highly unstable experimental weapon, the Displacer Cannon, a portable displacement device humming with volatile, unpredictable energy. Forged in the secretive bowels of Black Mesa before the disaster, the cannon weaponizes displacement fields to tear enemies apart. Its alternate fire violently yanks the wielder across the dimensional veil between Earth and Zen. Fueled by depleted uranium, the cannon's chaotic transit sometimes deposits Shepard beside the lifeless, marooned corpse of Gina Cross. Yet, the facility's arsenal holds even stranger, living weapons in its blood-stained vaults. Enter the Snarks, crimson, single-eyed insects boiling with a disproportionate, rabid fury. Hurled from the palm, these living grenades swarm their targets, tearing flesh from bone in a frenzied, suicidal hunger. Cast into the dark, the ravenous insect hunts for prey. If the shadows yield no victims, the Snark turns its lethal jaws back upon its master. Their birth is a grotesque mimicry of mammalian gestation. They spill from the swollen, toxic green abdomens of passive queens. Mottled with red, these bloated matriarchs possess 4 vestigial limbs, but remain utterly motionless, anchored in the dark, like living, breathing hives. A dozen killers gestate within the queen, before tearing free. The denizens of Zen weaponize this horror, planting volatile egg sacs in the shadows that violently erupt into a swarm of teeth when disturbed. Once unleashed, the creatures burn out rapidly, detonating in a sickening pop of pressurized viscera. Only the crushing grip of the wielder's hand keeps their volatile internal pressure from tearing them apart prematurely. Spat back out of the alien dimension, Shepard awakens not in the teleportation hall, but in the drowned, ruined hydrofauna labs of Black Mesa, where ichthyosaurs and leeches rule the murky depths. He watches helplessly as a stray electrical arc fries a stranded scientist alive. Another dimensional tear violently yanks the Corporal back into the alien border world. Navigating the shattered biodome, Shepard realizes Black Mesa had been harvesting Zen's horrors long before the Cascade. Ripping a weaponized barnacle from its mount, he intercepts a desperate HECU transmission. Soldiers are being slaughtered by something new. Descending into the toxic bowels of waste processing, Adrian confronts the pitworm, a colossal, segmented monstrosity armed with scythe-like claws and a singular piercing green eye. It dominates the poisoned waters of the lower levels. The Leviathan lashes out with a searing green laser from its solitary eye, its massive claws tearing at the catwalks. A well-placed bullet to the optic nerve blinds the beast, buying Shepard precious seconds to act. Flooding the chamber with corrosive waste, Shepard dissolves the shrieking monstrosity into the toxic sludge. He crosses the newly extended bridge, while across the dimensional divide, Gordon Freeman finally steps onto the alien soil of Zen. Freeman navigates the floating fractured islands of the border world, vaulting past the skeletal remains of previous HEV-suited expeditions. Discovering pools of unnatural healing waters, he carves a bloody path toward a pulsing organic portal. Breaching the island's core, Gordon Freeman triggers a natural rift, tumbling into the lair of Zen's most grotesque matriarch. Armored in thick carapace, the Gunarch guards a fleshy, vulnerable sack that ceaselessly vomits screeching infant head crabs. Battered and bleeding, the colossal beast plummets into a cavernous pit where Freeman delivers the final blow. Its violent death throes shatter the stone, revealing a hidden teleporter that leads toward the alien cloning complex. Back on a dying Earth, Corporal Shepard carves a bloody path through ruthless Black Ops assassins and a festering Voltigor nest. Reaching the contested dam, he detonates a desperate charge, obliterating a towering gargantua in fire. Plunging through the dam's shattered concrete, Shepard rides dark sewer currents back to his surviving brothers. Together, they brave a storm of Black Ops artillery and vicious Race X invaders, pushing deep into a subterranean garage. Shepard disarms the nuclear warhead, only to watch helplessly as the G-Man quietly arms it again. Descending into a warehouse choked with dead operatives, the Corporal finally stands before the Gene Worm, the enigmatic architect of Race X. This colossal monstrosity functions as a living, breathing factory of flesh. Designed to strip Earth of its natural resources, the Gene Worm threatens to violently terraform the dying world into a permanent paradise for its alien masters. A bloated, green Leviathan, thrashing with barbed tentacles, the creature bears a grim resemblance to the blind horrors of Zen. It lashes out in the dark, spewing a highly toxic, deadly torrent from its snapping, beak-like maw. Impervious to conventional fire, the beast's thick hide demands a different execution. Shepard mounts twin laser cannons powered by glowing Zen crystals, searing the monster's eyes and forcing the blinded Leviathan to desperately summon alien reinforcements. Ripping open its own chest, the creature reveals a pulsing purple rift that spits out shock troopers. Shepard unloads into its exposed, fleshy cavity, sending the dying worm crashing back through the portal in a violent electrical storm. The Hecu squads, who mounted those cannons, had vanished without a trace, their bones likely digested by the alien factory. Where his doomed brothers fell to the slaughter, Adrian Shepard stands his ground, fighting a war already lost. Emerging victorious from the slaughter, the Corporal steps into the collapsing rift. He awakens to the rhythmic thrum of a V-22 Osprey, trapped in the sky, sitting face to face with the chilling, suited specter known as the G-Man. The bureaucrat offers a cold compliment, seeing a dark reflection of himself in the soldier. Below them, the stolen warhead detonates, erasing Black Mesa in a blinding nuclear flash as the G-Man condemns Shepard to an endless stasis. Safely locked away from the waking world, the Corporal slumbers. Meanwhile, a bloodied Gordon Freeman materializes deep within a biomechanical Zen factory, where enslaved Vortigaunts toil in eerie, unprovoked silence, their glowing eyes tracking his every move. Survival here demands absolute precision. A single stray bullet could shatter the amber incubation pods, awakening the dormant alien grunts within. Freeman navigates this grotesque assembly line, riding fleshy conveyors and alien lifts deeper into the abyss. A final rift deposits him before a twisted, fleshy mockery of the anti-mass spectrometer, echoing with the ghostly screams of doomed scientists. Stepping into the altar's blood-red portal, Gordon plunges straight into the Neolanth's nightmarish domain. The colossal entity keeping the dimensional rift torn open floats in the void. The Nihilanth hurls crackling electrical spheres, summoning enslaved Vortigaunts or banishing Freeman to hostile pockets of Zen, while constantly regenerating its mangled flesh. Shattering the glowing crystals that feed the beast, Freeman cracks its armored skull open. Launching himself upward, he unloads into the exposed brain, watching the dying god violently detonate against the cavern roof, finally breaking the Vortigaunt's chains. With the alien cloning cycle permanently severed, the cavern collapses in a blinding flash of emerald light. When the dust settles, Freeman awakens, stripped of his weapons, standing face to face with the chilling, impeccably dressed G-Man. Shifting seamlessly, through the fractured alien landscapes of Zen, the bureaucratic phantom delivers his final monologue. He speaks not as a savior, but as a cold broker negotiating the price of a human soul. Reality snaps back to the familiar metal of a Black Mesa tram, suspended in an endless rushing void. The doors slide open to a shimmering portal, as the G-Man offers Freeman a grim choice: employment or certain death. The tram door slides open, bleeding unnatural light from a small portal. Should Gordon Freeman refuse the G-Man's bargain, he will be cast out into a lethal alien arena, condemned to face a monstrous horde in Zen's endless dark. Stepping into the void, Freeman accepts the Suit-Clad Phantom's offer and slips into cold stasis. He slumbers for nearly 2 decades, waiting for City 17, while GLaDOS's bitter technological rivalry with Black Mesa outlives the ruined facility. Black Mesa's destruction abruptly ends the corporate Cold War. Colette Green's morning PR tour becomes a ghost story, and Otis Laurie's afternoon guard training, where Barney was meant to stand in for a hologram, never sees the light of day. Whatever mundane schedules govern those doomed corridors, they are ash now. Barney's blue shift terminates violently ahead of its August deadline, ushering Earth into a grueling 20-year nightmare of apocalyptic portal storms. Savage portal storms tear the globe apart, vomiting Zen's alien flora and fauna onto terrestrial soil. Desperate governments and the UN herd terrified survivors into fortified protection centers within the world's crumbling metropolises. Deep underground, Aperture Science remains sealed like a tomb. Its captive employees lie dead from a neurotoxin flood, slaughtered long before the alien apocalypse above, rotting in a sterile hell that might just be worse than the dying Earth. Aperture's staff bleeds out through GLaDOS's relentless experiments, but a grander doom approaches. With the Nihilanth dead, the Combine, watching since the Resonance Cascade, rides the violent portal storm straight to Earth, hunting the fleeing Vortigaunts. Abandoning Zen, the Combine seizes the chance to chain 2 species at once. This colossal, interdimensional empire is a brutal patchwork of enslaved and allied worlds, casting a dark shadow across countless parallel universes. Ruled by faceless masters from an unseen capital, the Empire appoints Wallace Breen to govern its new terrestrial prize. They swallow worlds whole, twisting the dominant species into grotesque tools through ruthless biotechnology and surgical manipulation. Flesh and metal merge in the Combine's cruel foundries, birthing biomechanical synths to serve the Empire's whims. They forge bespoke races of super soldiers, genetically mutilated to thrive in the ashes of their own conquered homeworlds. This macabre harvest yields a terrifyingly adaptive military machine, engineered to crush any whisper of rebellion. Yet, the true motive behind the Combine's relentless, interdimensional imperialism remains a cold, unfathomable mystery. Riding the chaotic wake of the portal storms, the Combine launches a full-scale invasion, vomiting warships and troops into terrestrial skies. They subject humanity to a cruel alchemy, splicing human DNA into a new super army, while the Vortigaunts remain bound by simple neural collars and iron shackles. Fusing human flesh with alien steel, the invaders orchestrate a slaughter. The 7-hour war breaks the back of humanity, leaving Earth's great cities as mass graves, while desperate survivors flee into the barren countryside. Driven into the wilderness to escape the Combine's iron grip, scattered human rebels carve out hidden bases among hostile Zen wildlife. Liberated Vortigaunts, burning with a shared thirst for vengeance, ally with this fragile resistance. The remnants of human civilization are corralled into numbered cages under the Combine's suffocating watch. Looming over them all is the Citadel of City 17, the dark, beating heart of the alien occupation on Earth. Destined to serve as the Empire's terrestrial throne, the Citadel plunges deep into the planet's crust like a metallic dagger. Crowned by a dark energy reactor, its triangular spire pierces the sky, anchoring a vital portal. The Citadel did not rise from the dirt. Its core was hurled through a teleportation rift, slamming into City 17 before the towering fortress was built around it. Its violent arrival obliterated the surrounding streets, securing a permanent tether to the off-world empire. Stripping the Earth of its marrow, the Combine constructs the Citadel's sprawling shell around that alien core. The next phase of subjugation begins with a familiar face, Dr. Wallace Breen, installed as humanity's interim administrator, a fact preserved in Black Mesa East's fading clippings. The former Black Mesa administrator emerges from the chaotic haze of the portal storms, stepping onto the world stage. He swiftly trades his interim title for absolute rule, a willing puppet dancing on the advisor's strings. Presenting himself to a desperate UN as the sole voice capable of reasoning with the Combine, Breen secures humanity's surrender. Whispers linger in the dark that he orchestrated the Black Mesa disaster, selling out his species for a hollow crown. A darker theory festers. Unseen employers held the G-Man's leash, orchestrating the GG-3883 crystal's delivery to Black Mesa. They knew of Earth and Zen, lurking in the shadows until the Resonance Cascade tore reality apart. Others whisper that Breen was blinded by a delusion of cosmic unity. He believed inviting the Combine's brutal legions would ultimately elevate humanity, forging a twisted harmony between the two species. Regardless of his motives, Breen hands humanity over on a silver platter. Had he not surrendered Earth at the bitter end of the 7-hour war, the Combine would have simply ground the human race into absolute dust. He sells the surrender as a gift of immortality, claiming the Combine come in peace. Stepping over human corpses, Breen rationalizes the slaughter as a mere transitional toll for Earth's glorious induction into the Universal Union. A human face masking an alien boot, Breen broadcasts the lie that enslavement is evolution. While he preaches submission, a massive corporate supplier of military hardware and consumer goods suddenly goes completely dark. Aperture Science, a titan churning out everything from rations to supercomputers, severs all contact. The sudden silence of their supply chains rings loud, yet every desperate attempt to reach the company's brass meets a dead end. Expeditions to the facility bounce off blast doors, forged to withstand nuclear hellfire. Thousands of souls are entombed within, swallowed by a profound silence that began a week before the Black Mesa incident tore the sky open. While portal storms rage and the 7-hour war ravages the surface, GLaDOS coldly continues her experiments. She locks her captives away, calculating that the apocalypse above justifies her twisted, suffocating protection below. Around 2020, Wallace Breen perches in the Citadel's highest spire above City 17. He blankets the urban decay with his soothing voice, his face looming from massive screens erected in the heart of the subjugated plazas. Every broadcast, every printed word is strangled by censorship. Breen's message is a simple poison. Submit to the Combine. Broken by the portal storms, a disoriented populace swallows the lie, trading their freedom for fearful security. The Combine wields terror as a shield, keeping the Zen invaders at bay so terrified families can breathe another day. In exchange, Breen accepts a grim mandate: pacify the Earth and prepare it for its new masters. Breen's true task is to crush the resistance, twisting captured rebels into mutilated stalker slaves. This butchery unfolds within Nova Prospect, a grim, maximum security fortress where the decaying old block echoes the rusted cages of Alcatraz. The old wing rots in silence, open cells, empty mess halls, and dry showers left to the dust. The Combine abandons this decaying relic entirely, funneling their dark resources into the prison's sterile, modernized heart. Flooded corridors and ruined cell blocks now belong to the invaders of Zen. Barnacles hang in the shadows, headcrabs scuttle over the debris, and shambling zombies claim the forgotten spaces the Combine left to rot. The Combine leaves the old ruins to fester, slowly swallowing them with Nova Prospect's encroaching, cold architecture. Deep inside this new block lies the processing center, a mechanized slaughterhouse waiting for captured flesh. Here, teleportation tech is forged alongside human misery. Combined scientists carve away higher brain functions, subjecting their lobotomized victims to twisted surgical horrors and threading their skin with cold, parasitic nanodevices. They watch with clinical detachment as the last spark of humanity dies. What remains is a stalker, a gray, emaciated husk stripped of fat and muscle, its behavior warped far beyond anything recognizable as human. forearms and calves are brutally severed, replaced by crude metal pegs to cripple their stride. Stripped of faces and flesh, they wear only a heavy belt, designed to lock their mutilated forms into transport pods. To ensure absolute obedience, their digestive tracts are hollowed out, replaced by nutrient ports feeding them, combined sludge. Voiceless, they can only emit ragged guttural shrieks from throats stripped of their vocal cords. Engineered to endure, these wretched husks shrug off deadly radiation, toiling tirelessly beside the Citadel's burning core. They drag themselves through the dark, their hunched, agonizingly slow gait a testament to their endless torment. Hunched and slow, the stalkers drag their swinging limbs through the Citadel, their vacant eyes shielded by hinged metal plates. Mute and mutilated, they wheeze in the dark, while the Combine actively seeks to re-enslave the Vortigons. Stripping the flesh from humanity to forge stalkers, the Combine herds the Vortigons back into chains. Earth's brightest minds vanish into the cold isolation of Nova Prospect, strapped to operating tables as their captors violently extract their secrets. Draining humanity's collective intellect before orchestrating its extinction, the Combine transforms Nova Prospect into a brutal holding pen for dissidents. Within these grim walls, a nightmare laboratory awaits, ready to butcher and rebuild the broken prisoners. Surgical implants warp captive flesh into obedient Overwatch soldiers or hollowed-out stalkers. Above, a suffocating suppression field sterilizes the globe, ensuring no child draws breath and condemning Earth's final generation to a slow, childless decay. Tainted with insidious biochemicals, the city's water supply slowly erodes the citizens' memories. Stripped of their righteous fury, the docile populace blindly submits to Wallace Breen and the Combine, forgetting the very architects of their misery. As the Combine viciously drains the oceans and bleeds Earth dry, the illusion of safety shatters. Desperate for a world untainted by Zen's horrors, ordinary citizens retreat into the shadows, quietly forging the first fractured cells of rebellion. Lacking a central command, the Resistance relies on a scattered vanguard of defiant souls. Figures like Eli Vance, Barney Calhoun, Arnie Magnuson, Alyx Vance, Russell, and eventually Gordon Freeman emerge from the gloom to guide the uprising. The Resistance fractures into two desperate fronts against the alien occupation. Brilliant minds like Eli Vance spearhead the clandestine research divisions, while hardened survivors like Barney Calhoun and Gordon Freeman orchestrate the bloody, relentless combat operations. Hidden beyond the concrete decay of City 17, Black Mesa East stands as a fragile sanctuary. Nestled near a rusted scrapyard and a silent dam, the outpost borders the cursed, ash-choked ruins of the mining town Ravenholm. Within Black Mesa East, Eli, Alyx, Judith Mossman, and liberated Vortigons plot their defiance. Before this sanctuary, desperate refugees fleeing City 17 sought shelter in Ravenholm, a hidden haven that remained blissfully invisible to the Combine's gaze. When the Combine finally uncovered Ravenholm, their retribution was merciless. A relentless barrage of headcrab shells rained from the sky, transforming the quiet refuge into a rotting nightmare of zombies, leaving Father Grigory as the sole survivor. Driven to madness by the slaughter, Father Grigory transforms his childhood home into a labyrinth of lethal traps. Stalking the blood-soaked streets of Ravenholm, the unhinged priest wages a lonely, violent crusade against the shambling undead. Ordained in the shadow of the Combine's occupation, the mad priest refuses to abandon his ruined parish. Rigging the shadows with deadly mechanisms, he violently liberates his mutated flock, granting his monstrous children the cold mercy of death. The shambling horrors were once Grigory's devoted congregation. Elsewhere, Eli Vance carries his own tragic ghosts. Fleeing the Black Mesa disaster, he lost his wife Asian, escaping with only infant Alyx, a photograph, and a wedding ring. Clutching the golden band he still wears, Eli forged a new destiny at Black Mesa East. As he built the Resistance from the ashes, a vicious encounter with a bull squid claimed his leg, cementing his physical sacrifice. Sacrificing his limb to smuggle Isaac Kleiner into City 17, Eli fiercely protected his daughter, constructing the hulking mechanical dog as her guardian. His genius later birthed the gravity gun and pioneered teleportation alongside Kleiner and Judith Mossman. Outfitting a rugged buggy with a lethal Tau cannon for coastal rebels, Eli's true triumph lay in diplomacy. He was the first human to extend a peaceful hand to the Vortigaunts, forging an unbreakable alliance against the Combine. Uniting two fractured species against the Combine's tyranny, Eli earned the absolute reverence of the Vortigaunts. To these alien allies, the grieving widower embodies the very best of humanity, serving as the indispensable architect of their shared liberation. Bound by the tragic loss of Asian, Eli and Alyx share an unbreakable devotion. Eli's calm, unwavering confidence perfectly counters Isaac Kleiner's nervous, methodical caution, forging a brilliant and resilient partnership in the darkest of times. Forged in the doomed halls of Black Mesa, their friendship endures, with Eli still affectionately calling him Izzy. Meanwhile, the arrogant Arne Magnusson, another survivor of the Resonance Cascade, bitterly remembers his petty rivalries over old research grants. Arne Magnusson, a man who once fought Isaac Kleiner for mere grant money, now commands the White Forest stronghold, leveraging his brilliant mind against the Combine after fleeing Black Mesa's ashes. Magnusson's crowning achievement looms, a rocket destined for orbit to sync with Gordon Freeman's old satellite, while he crafts a weapon to shatter Combine striders, aided by a loyal Vortigaunt named Uriah. Uriah reveres Dr. Magnusson's sharp intellect, though the stubborn scientist still nurses a bitter, decades-old grudge against Freeman over a ruined lunch, masking a heart capable of sudden, surprising gratitude. Impatient and fiercely stubborn, Magnusson routinely dismisses Kleiner to handle tedious chores, clinging to the bitter ghost of their old Black Mesa grant rivalry, as if the world never ended. Russell, the Resistance quartermaster, who failed a Black Mesa interview just months before the world broke, hoards the ghosts of humanity, having downloaded the entire internet before the 7-hour war. Standing with Eli in the aftermath of the invasion, this gray-haired engineer retreats to his lab, forging gravity gloves and hacking a Combine City scanner into his own hovering spy. A master of networks and robotics, Russell masks his brilliance behind a shield of cynical sarcasm, though his hacker's mind sharpens into deadly focus when the Resistance needs him most. While Russell dismantles Combine architecture with ease, Dr. Judith Mossman plays a far more dangerous game at Black Mesa East, building Resistance miracles while secretly feeding whispers to the enemy. Reporting directly to Wallace Breen, Mossman walks a razor's edge of betrayal, her long tenure as a double agent exposed only by the administrator's impatient demands for Eli's immediate capture. Destined to hand the Combine the elusive secret of local teleportation, Mossman projects a cold, arrogant authority that desperately masks the impulsive, emotionally fragile woman hiding beneath the surface. Harboring a deep, unspoken affection for Eli, Mossman lets bitter jealousy poison her relationship with Alyx Vance, politely but ruthlessly maneuvering to keep the daughter away from her father. Alyx sees right through the polite veneer, knowing Mossman harbors a toxic resentment toward Gordon Freeman, forever bitter that he stood in the Black Mesa test chamber where she belonged. A survivor of the old world, young Alyx escapes the Black Mesa Resonance Cascade only because the elusive G-Man plucks her from the fire despite unseen skeptics' vocal objections. Ignorant of the G-Man's chilling warning about unforeseen consequences, Alyx grows up in the shadow of the Combine, raised by Eli within the hidden, concrete walls of Black Mesa East. Finding a surrogate uncle in Dr. Kleiner, the girl finds protection in Dog, a towering guardian forged from scrap metal by Eli, possessing a mechanical sixth sense for her safety. What begins as a knee-high toy swells into an 8-foot mechanical beast as Alyx comes of age, stepping into the Resistance to help Barney and Kleiner smuggle desperate civilians out. Navigating the rotting canals, she funnels refugees to safety and solders the very bones of the Resistance, installing the delicate hardware that links Kleiner's hidden lab to Black Mesa East. The immediate aftermath of Black Mesa swallows Barney Calhoun's old allies, but 20 years later, he surfaces in City 17, wearing the mask of civil protection as an undercover mole. Guarding Kleiner from the shadows, Barney infiltrates the Combine Overwatch, a brutal occupying force where augmented soldiers and monstrous synths carve the dying planet into tightly controlled, suffocating sectors. The cold, synthesized voice of the Overwatch dictates reality across a conquered Earth, herding the last remnants of humanity and enslaved Vortigaunts into the decaying concrete cages of the remaining cities. Cities suffocate beneath the Combine's iron grip. Civil protection enforces the daily grind, manning bleak checkpoints on the urban fringe, while heavily armed soldiers stalk the wastelands beyond, guarding the Empire's vital secrets. These soldiers scour the desolate coastlines, hunting resistance fighters beneath the shadows of gunships and force fields. At the heart of this oppression looms the Citadel, a monolithic fortress housing legions of the Combine's finest. Within the Citadel's cold metallic bowels, monstrous support synths like Striders and gunships are birthed and repaired. Yet, the dark surgery that creates stalkers and transhuman soldiers might remain Nova Prospect's exclusive, gruesome trade. Sector 17's Overwatch forces dominate City 17 and its decaying coastlines. This sprawling, ruthless army of humans, transhumans, and biomechanical synths stands as the Combine's most formidable weapon on a conquered Earth. Unleashed to crush any spark of rebellion, civil protection serves as the Combine's brutal thought police. The locals whisper their names, Metrocops, CPs, dreading the heavy footsteps of these urban enforcers. They prowl the decaying streets, dragging dissidents into the shadows. These collaborators trade their humanity to the Combine Overwatch, selling out their own kind for the hollow promise of a better life. Radio chatter betrays their petty motivations: extra rations, warmer clothes, and comfortable quarters. Unlike the monstrous transhuman soldiers, these enforcers remain entirely human, their flesh untouched by the Combine's surgical horrors. Faceless, behind white iron masks, reminiscent of old Soviet gas hoods, the Metrocops surrender their identities. Built-in vocoders strip away their humanity, reducing their voices to a cold, static-laced mechanical drone. Concealed behind these grim respirators, they patrol in black tactical sweaters and light armor. Ironically, the Resistance often strips this very Kevlar from dead Metrocops, turning the oppressor's gear against them. Clad in green trousers and black leather boots, they wear their allegiance on their sleeves. The C-17, stenciled on their collars, marks them as property of a shadowy Combine division steeped in cryptic code. Armed with standard 9mm pistols and crackling stun batons, they rule through pain. When the shadows grow too dangerous, flare guns summon reinforcements, and standard patrols escalate into brutal submachine gun sweeps. In desperate hours, they unleash MP7s and deploy whirring manhacks, backed by the heavy fire of APCs and hunter choppers. Yet, their favorite pastime remains brutally beating unarmed citizens with electrified batons. They deliver savage electrical beatings for the slightest infraction, perhaps driven by a grim, rumored quota. Radios crackle constantly as they receive cold, calculated directives from the omnipresent Overwatch dispatcher. Fed a constant stream of targets and hollow rewards, they hunt in packs. Their tactics are crude but effective, aggressively covering their wounded and rushing forward to overwhelm any desperate resistance. They strike with reckless aggression, guided by unseen squad leaders. When a Metrocop falls, his radio emits a piercing, sustained flatline, a cold mechanical eulogy severing his link to the Combine's network. The dispatcher coldly broadcasts the dead man's final coordinates, summoning nearby squads to the slaughter. This incessant radio chatter often betrays their approach, exposing a fatal lack of discipline compared to true soldiers. Lacking the lethal precision of the transhuman Overwatch, these glorified beat cops patrol the urban decay separately. They roll through the streets in armored transports, their grim work overseen by hovering mechanical scanners. Flanked by scanners and manhacks, they are driven by perverse incentives. The Overwatch voice promises non-mechanical reproduction simulation for a job well done, a chilling, sterile reward for their violent obedience. Another grim incentive is family cohesion preservation, a thinly veiled threat against their loved ones should they fail. To keep them marching, the Combine feeds them anti-fatigue rations, chemical stimulants masking their exhaustion. Failure or insubordination earns a one-way ticket to the surgical tables, transformed into mindless transhuman soldiers. These heavily modified elites form the true Combine infantry, leaving petty urban policing behind for brutal warfare. Tasked with crushing the resistance across the desolate outskirts, Combine soldiers are a far deadlier breed than local civil cops. Clad in dark uniforms and heavy armor, they execute true military tactics. Extra plating shields their vitals and limbs, topped with helmets far more advanced than a standard patrolman's gear. Bearing right shoulder insignias, these shock troops descend from dropships clutching MP7 submachine guns. Their brutal arsenal expands to AR-2 pulse rifles, PS-12 shotguns, and heavy grenades. Prowling the concrete veins of City 17 and the desolate coastlines, they secure high-value targets with cold, mechanical efficiency. Beneath the armor lies a tragic truth. These are humans mutilated by extensive cybernetic surgery. Civil protection officers earn promotions to this rank, willingly surrendering their humanity for extra privileges and a brutal new power. Yet, the ghost of humanity lingers in their augmented shells. They groan when bleeding and curse at incoming grenades. Carrying radios, they constantly chatter with dispatch, reporting casualties and targets in a cold, mechanical rhythm. Periodically reporting to Overwatch, these universal infantrymen adapt into specialized roles. The Combine Sniper, a standard soldier trained in lethal precision, haunts the city's vertical shadows to rain death from above. Perched in inaccessible nests, they remain invisible, save for the chilling blue beam of their laser sights. Clad in urban gray camouflage, they ruthlessly execute anything that twitches, from stray pigeons to wandering headcrabs. Deep within the maximum security nightmare of Nova Prospect, specialized prison guards stalk the decaying cell blocks. Wielding standard weaponry, they are distinguished only by their dark blue armor, marking them as wardens of the damned. Stamped with the prison's name and staring through jaundiced yellow lenses, their radio chatter reveals a chillingly deep, distorted voice, grim evidence of further, darker, cybernetic mutilations suffered within those walls. The shotgun soldier, forever clutching a SPAS-12, cuts a distinct figure with a darker helmet and burning orange lenses. Bearing an elite insignia on their left arm, they stalk the battlefield with lethal authority. Acting as squad commanders, the Nova Prospect variants don the standard dark blue vest, but glare through blood-red lenses. Armed for slaughter, they sprint into the fray, forcing brutal, close-quarters executions. The heavy infantry, dubbed the Wall by the Combine, is a towering brute encased in thick plating. A black gas mask helmet obscures their face, its glowing blue lenses fading to a dead, dark hue upon execution. A wired earpiece feeds them constant tactical chatter. Whether marching alongside suppressors and ordinals or hunting alone, this juggernaut wields a heavy shotgun and projects a portable energy shield from a forearm device. Unlike standard Combine barriers, this localized force field swallows incoming bullets and shrapnel whole. Unleashing a blinding flash, the shield disorients desperate rebels, leaving them helpless before the advancing firing squad. This walking fortress is a nightmare to fell, absorbing massive punishment. Yet the shield blocks his own gunfire, forcing the brute to drop his guard before unleashing devastating point-blank retaliation. Plodding forward with agonizing slowness, he excels in relentless frontal assaults. Any foolish rebel who underestimates this lumbering tank, abandoning cover or strategy, is swiftly ground into the unforgiving pavement. The Ordinal, a ruthless Combine captain, commands these mixed squads of brutes and suppressors. Prowling both the Quarantine Zone and City 17, he shares the heavy infantry's grim, masked visage. Clad in dark blue medium armor and a heavy radio backpack, he orchestrates the slaughter. His pauldrons bear the severed head of a Vortigaunt, a macabre insignia marking his squad as specialized alien hunters. Barking orders and gesturing through the smoke, the Ordinal directs the crossfire. When rebels scurry into the shadows, he unleashes whirring manhacks to flush them out, serving as the squad's grim tactical anchor. Should the captain fall, panicked soldiers report the loss to Overwatch, their disciplined tactics unraveling into chaos. In life, he wields a black pulse rifle, keeping a belt-mounted manhack ready for the slaughter. A manhack hangs at the belt, chest rigged with a pistol mag, syringe, or grenade. Lacking the heavy plating of suppressors and chargers, these ordinals are the Combine's versatile elite, hanging back to deliver precise pulse rifle bursts. They deploy whirring manhacks as cruel distractions, slipping through the shadows to flank their disoriented prey. Stripped of helmets, the zombified ordinals reveal a grim truth when compared to the mangled heads of grunts and chargers. Their exposed flesh is a sickly pink, not gray, the brow marred by deep, unnatural convolutions no headcrab could carve. The right ear remains whole beneath the headset, unlike the mutilated auditory holes of lesser grunts. The skull lacks implant scars, bearing only a cryptic emblem. The grunt, designated HL1 by the Combine, floods City 17's residential blocks and the quarantine zone as the most common enforcer during the Citadel's grim construction. Often marching under an ordinal's harsh command, these grunts guard doomed prisoners and grotesque advisors aboard the screaming razor trains. A bulky helmet obscures their humanity, dominated by a gas mask and soulless yellow lenses. When death takes them, those yellow eyes power down into a dead, hollow blue. Their right ear comms broadcast clear, undistorted voices, echoing from black and white uniforms that offer no heavy armor against the Resistance's wrath. Bearing stark shoulder insignias, they carry grenade holsters and belt pouches for ammo or syringes. A heavy propane tank often burdens their backs, pumping artificial warmth into cold veins as they grip their Combine submachine guns. Outside the quarantine zone, these enforcers shed their gas mask filters and grenade holsters. Arriving behind the wheels of armored transports, these drivers remain the Combine's least disciplined foot soldiers, raw and poorly trained. They stumble through reports to the Overwatch AI, cursing when the horror of the streets overwhelms them. Bleeding out, they whisper apologies or beg for help, leaving behind shattered helmets that reveal the nightmare beneath. Beneath the uniform, their flesh is a dead, bloodless gray, a metal plate bolted directly into the brow. Wires replace gouged-out eyes, while twin cranial implants ensure the Overwatch AI tracks their every miserable step. The brutal charger shares the same gray flesh and mutilated skull. Meanwhile, the suppressor, the Combine's heavily armed antibody protection force, stalks exclusively through the quarantine zone, hunting alongside other corrupted souls in the shadows. Whether moving in lethal packs or stalking alone, they are clad in gray, orange, and black, beneath heavy tactical plating. Armored pauldrons, bracers, and a solitary right shin guard turn them into walking fortresses. This heavy plating absorbs a staggering barrage of gunfire. Bearing the orange insignias of standard grunts and the grim crest of the Overwatch soldier, they carry extra syringes and magazines, hefting a devastating light machine gun. Their rapid-fire machine gun, feeding on standard submachine munitions, turns the streets into a slaughterhouse. Striking from a calculated distance, the suppressor pins its desperate prey beneath an unrelenting, deafening storm of lead. While lesser grunts swarm and surround, the suppressor holds the line, denying any approach. Their stark white helmet, reinforced with cold metal, features a uniquely grotesque gas mask and a specialized filtration unit. A stark, flammable warning marks the filter, mounted unnaturally high above the wearer's mouth. Tiny, elongated lenses protrude from the white shell, spaced wide apart to grant this monster a predatory, wide-angle gaze. Those orange-red eyes refuse to dim, staring blankly even in death. Through a heavily distorted vocoder, they bark clipped, mechanical phrases, muttering of cognitive dissonance and fresh tactical downloads from the Overwatch AI. As the Overwatch AI force-feeds data into their suppressed minds, a deadlier shadow emerges, the Combine Elite. Clad in pristine white armor, this high-ranking butcher glares through a single, piercing red optic. They stand as the Combine's most lethal transhuman weapons. Upgraded armor plates fortify their necks and stomachs against resistance fire, while their cyclopean helmets strip away the last vestiges of human identity. Behind that solitary crimson eye, specialized auditory implants drink in the faintest whispers of dissent. Their helmets are a technological nightmare, packing gas filtration, encrypted comms, night vision, and thermal tracking into one brutal shell. Outfitted with thermal optics and night vision, Combine elites strike with lethal precision, wielding Overwatch pulse rifles exclusively to unleash devastating alternate fire and volatile energy orbs into the dark. These elite killers hunt in packs, though a lone operative often commands lesser squads or shadows high-ranking Combine VIPs, standing as silent sentinels outside Wallace Breen's towering Citadel office. The Overwatch commands the skies, summoning Airwatch gunships, dropships, and hunter choppers to rain fire upon the streets below, their deployed units shifting and evolving as the years grind on. 15 years after the Black Mesa incident, the Combine deployed a different breed of enforcer: officers, grunts, ordinals, and suppressors, patrolling alongside hazmat workers before the brutal evolution seen in later years. 5 years later, those specific ranks vanish from the streets, replaced by new forces, suggesting the Combine tailored their brutal garrisons to combat the heavy Zen infestations that plagued certain territories. Adapting their grim tactics to cleaner sectors, the Combine left the Quarantine Zone, a walled-off nightmare within City 17, to rot after the Black Mesa incident unleashed alien horrors upon the Earth. Following the 7-hour war, the Combine claimed City 17 as their throne, erecting massive barricades around the Zen-choked ruins and leaving anyone trapped inside to face a gruesome, inevitable death. They built an inner wall around the vault, abandoning the ruins to the alien overgrowth until they suddenly poured soldiers and supplies into the Quarantine Dark, desperate to secure their secrets. The expedition ended in blood and mutation, leaving the Combine struggling to contain the zombie hordes and barnacle spores behind massive railway hatches that seal the Quarantine Zone's suffocating tunnels. Locked behind heavy command panels, the perimeter tightened until only razor trains could pierce the barricades, yet desperate souls still slipped past the lethal cordons into the infested shadows. Among the ruins, a lone Vortigaunt named Gary and a hardened survivor named Larry cling to life in the shadows, hiding from the devastating Combine arsenal that now chokes the globe. Following the 7-hour war, the Combine flooded the Earth with pulse weaponry, a brutal technology fueled by dark energy that they twist into exotic plasma for both power and ammunition. Permeating the cold void of the universe, dark energy was once a mere phantom of human theory, an undetectable force dreamed up by scientists to explain the cosmos tearing itself apart. The Combine mastered what humanity only guessed at, building massive reactors that harvest this cosmic phantom and convert it into the exotic matter powering their oppressive, world-spanning war machine. Making up the vast, unseen bulk of the universe, this zero-point vacuum energy remained a mathematical ghost until the doomed scientists at Black Mesa began probing its volatile, world-ending secrets. This fatal link between dark energy and the vacuum explains why the Citadel's confiscation field fails to destroy the gravity gun, instead supercharging the weapon with raw, crackling cosmic power. Igniting these reactors demands a colossal surge of vacuum acceleration before they become self-sustaining, birthing volatile spheres of power so devastating that a single orb could vaporize all of City 17. Harnessed as a lethal battery, this exotic plasma fuels Combine weaponry, firing concentrated particles that annihilate living flesh, leaving victims to drift as disintegrating husks in the cold, dead air. When this volatile plasma collides with ordinary matter, the discharged energy tears tiny, violent spatial anomalies into the target, a gruesome reality engineered perfectly into the Overwatch pulse rifle. Designated the AR-2, this brutal piece of Combine engineering reimagines the classic assault rifle, arming Overwatch grunts and elite squads with a relentless pulse emitter and a devastating underbarrel launcher. An underslung attachment unleashes devastating energy orbs, a feature prized by rebels who frequently capture these rifles. In White Forest, a resistance fighter's tactical advice against hunters sparks a heated debate over the mythical AR-3. Though the mounted Combine machine gun represents another pulse weapon variant, likely designated AR-1 in the buried code, the fabled AR-3 remains a phantom. According to that same cynical rebel, such a weapon simply does not exist. The Combine's stationary machine gun rests behind heavy shields, guarding the gunner's lower body from desperate retaliation. Frequently commandeered by the Resistance, this brutal emplacement unleashes fully automatic fire for an eternity without pause. Immune to overheating and devoid of traditional ammunition, its only flaw is a wide bullet spread that ruins long-range accuracy. Ground, ceiling, and portable turrets share this lethal lineage, all engineered for relentless suppressive fire. Triggered within a strict radius, these automated sentries lock down contested territories with overwhelming force. The portable turret offers grim mobility, easily carried and swiftly deployed anywhere, unlike its rigid, stationary counterparts bound to specific choke points. While stationary turrets guard vital installations, the suppression device looms as a far darker threat. Functioning like a traditional mortar, this stationary terror rains down a devastating, concentrated beam of dark energy instead of explosive shells. Striking the earth, the beam obliterates structures and disintegrates any living creature within a brutal 5-meter radius. As the suppressor charges its lethal payload, the doomed soil at the targeted impact zone begins to ominously glow. The targeted ground radiates a sickly yellow-blue hue just before the strike, the weapon calculating deadly lead based on its victim's speed. A small interface and binocular lenses suggest a cold, calculating operator guides this slaughter. Manned by a specially trained Overwatch soldier, this emplacement commands absolute dread. Meanwhile, the Combine light machine gun operates on familiar, brutal principles, utilizing a cooling jacket and bipod to sustain relentless, unyielding fire without overheating. As it fires, rear flaps snap open like a metallic radiator, venting heat during suppressive barrages. The heavy shotgun, a monstrously modified variant designed exclusively for Combine heavy infantry, boasts a massive, unwieldy frame forged for slaughter. Fed by a bulky box magazine, this heavy shotgun eclipses its standard counterpart. The Combine sniper rifle fires a devastating, high-caliber slug every 4 seconds, its immense stopping power betrayed only by a piercing blue laser sight. Requiring a dedicated power source, an inactive sniper rifle is discovered en route to White Forest, bolted firmly to the wall. This rigid mounting and strict genetic locks ensure the weapon never falls from a dead marksman's hands. For 15 years, genetic locks restricted these dark energy weapons solely to Overwatch forces. Eventually, the Resistance cracked the code, turning the Combine's own power against them, though less sophisticated tools of war still litter the battlefield. The MK3A2 fragmentation grenade offers brutal simplicity, detonating only after its agonizing light and sound timer expires. Elsewhere, a stationary grenade launcher rides atop a truck's mobile platform, protected by a shimmering force field that repels desperate rebel fire. Guarded by a shield akin to a Combine charger's defense, this launcher demands a physical pull of its left side lever to fire. Fed from a bottom crate, its volatile projectiles detonate violently upon striking any solid surface. The Hopper Mine, a vicious anti-personnel explosive, leaps into the air before detonating like a classic bounding mine. Delivered and deployed by military scanners, its dome-shaped chassis rests ominously on 3 metallic legs, waiting for a victim. Upon landing, the Hopper uses its legs to right itself, anchoring firmly to the ground. The Roller Mine, a self-propelled spherical terror, hunts its prey using programmable sensors housed within a cold, faceted metallic shell. Composed of 12 interlocking prisms, the Roller Mine extends hidden electrodes when shifting into attack mode. Guided by motion sensors, it identifies hostiles and aggressively rolls forward, eager to deliver a paralyzing, high-voltage electrical shock. Latching onto vehicles with a magnetic grip, the Roller Mine cripples movement while electrocuting the helpless crew inside. Heavily armored, standard gunfire only manages to knock the relentless sphere back, delaying an inevitable, shocking demise. Only deep water, electromagnetic pulses, or heavy explosives can permanently silence a Roller Mine. Above, the Hunter Chopper indiscriminately carpets the battlefield with timed spherical mines, a brutal tactic designed to flush out or obliterate entrenched Resistance fighters. A simple laser tripwire marks the Combine's explosive snare, a prelude to their heavier mechanized terrors, like the Hunter Chopper, an airborne enforcer that marries stolen human aeronautics with cold alien engineering. Painted in bruised blue-gray, this agile, futuristic predator carries a two-man crew, bristling with thermal trackers and comms antennas, while its nose-mounted pulse gun spits a wildly inaccurate but devastating barrage. Sweeping multiple targets with varied firing modes, the Hunter Chopper also rains down spherical contact mines that detonate on impact, or a ticking timer, occasionally unleashing rockets for a more precise, brutal execution. Deployed offensively, these floating explosive spheres are cast directly into the path of moving targets or atop fragile structures, turning waterways into deadly traps as they drop one by one. The chopper can carpet bomb its payload, but on the ground, the Combine APC rolls through the streets, a brutal hybridization of familiar Earth vehicle concepts and oppressive alien technology. Forged from the Empire's signature blue-gray dark alloy, the APC's hull is a jagged mass of large angular plates devoid of soft curves, riding on wheels of ambiguous metallic composition. Whether clad in solid rubber or pure steel, the transport hauls a squad of soldiers in its cramped rear, sealed behind small windowed doors and a glass-paneled roof hatch. An open firing port scars the right flank, while an internally controlled, roof-mounted pulse machine gun allows the armored beast to independently unleash omnidirectional fire long after its troops disembark. This anti-infantry turret is dwarfed only by the vehicle's emergency rocket launcher, a lethal system that vomits a volley of 5 homing missiles, leaving its desperate prey no chance of survival. Strangely, these missiles erupt from the roof despite the launcher's forward placement, an architectural anomaly in the Combine's arsenal, while the Razor train stands as another human invention twisted to alien needs. Looming with a cold, futuristic dread, these massive locomotives were engineered to dominate humanity's stolen rail networks, repurposed as iron arteries to haul the Empire's grim cargo across a broken world. The Razor train ferries a wretched payload of prisoners and mutilated stalkers from Nova Prospect to the Citadel, while also deploying fresh Combine infantry to crush any flickering sparks of rebellion. Hurtling down the tracks at terrifying speeds, this heavily armored juggernaut shrugs off conventional weapons, violently ramming through abandoned vehicles and metal debris as if they were mere paper. Guided either by remote signals or a terminal buried in its nose, the unarmed locomotive remains a lethal force, obliterating any living creature foolish enough to stand on its iron path. Sharing the rusted rails with decaying human boxcars, the train gives way to the true architects of the 7-Hour War's flawless victory, the synths, enslaved alien creatures twisted into living war machines. Operating as self-replicating, evolving biomechanical horrors, the true number of synth variants remains a terrifying mystery, with nightmares like the crab synth lurking unseen in the Empire's darkest shadows. The line between flesh and machine blurs. Some beasts may merely wear armor over unaltered bodies, while even the mechanical city scanners might secretly harbor organic, synthesized hearts beneath their metal shells. What remains certain is their heavily armored hide, though not entirely impenetrable, while some demand the explosive fury of rockets or a well-placed Magnuson device. Concentrated conventional gunfire can still shatter a lesser synth's carapace. Volatile orbs of dark energy also burn through their defenses, a vulnerability rarely exploited during the 7-Hour War, long before the Combine began churning out human hybrid patrols and mechanized choppers. The shield scanner, a militarized evolution of the city's mechanical eyes, descends upon the battlefield, its internal claw clutching deadly hopper mines to seed the war zone with hidden, explosive death. Deployed to choke narrow alleys and stall enemy movements, these internal mines turn the city's veins into death traps. Beyond mere reconnaissance alongside civilian models, shield scanners serve as spotters for the towering striders. Relaying the coordinates of hidden targets to their heavy artillery, the combat scanner also captures stark photographs of the battlefield. Its single power cell, once extracted, offers a fleeting charge for the HEV suit. The crab synth emerges as a spiked, insectoid nightmare of Combine engineering. Hidden within its brutal animations, lies a crushing melee strike mirroring the Antlion Guard, though its true terror rests in an integrated Gatling gun. Mounted squarely on its snout, the pulse gun fires only when the beast is in motion, retracting into a concealed compartment when idle. Above, the mortar synth drifts as an airborne spectre of the Combine. Glimpsed only on the Citadel's dark conveyor belts, these machines form the grim backbone of a future army. The mortar synth boasts a triangular chassis, trailing elongated tentacles and a rear launcher behind a spiked prow. Laced with glowing blue mechanics, the low-hovering mortar synth acts as a living catapult, pitching its rear upward to lob energy grenades. This heavy fire support devastates distant targets but falters when the enemy closes in. The Strider looms as a heavily armored Leviathan. Behind its creation lies a grim truth revealed in development. The Combine did not merely modify a living beast, but scanned an alien entity in its natural habitat. Synthetically reconstructed from that stolen biological blueprint, the Strider bears a brown, beetle-like carapace perched atop 3 towering articulated legs. A rotating pulse turret sits mounted on its nose, scanning the ruins for prey. Beneath its armored belly hangs a devastating warp cannon, cementing the Strider as the Combine's premier heavy assault unit. While the rapid-fire pulse turret shreds fragile infantry, the heavier gun awaits larger prey. The warp cannon obliterates heavy fortifications, while 3 spiked legs skewer close-range threats and sweep debris. Impaling resistance fighters with brutal efficiency, the towering synth eventually shakes the corpses loose with a chilling display of disgust. This macabre fastidiousness hints at a suppressed, calculating sentience. Prowling the concrete canyons, Striders broadcast their dominance through thunderous footfalls and electronic shrieks, culminating in a mournful, synthetic wail when finally brought down. Shattered armor plates bleed a sickly yellow-brown ichor, exposing a glowing blue brain unit. Despite its organic appearance, this neural core betrays its heavily synthetic nature, a vital weak point hidden beneath the armored shell. This inorganic dominance within their control centers makes Striders the perfect instruments of population suppression. Solitary titans are frequently deployed to stalk the quarantined avenues of City 17, casting long shadows over the oppressed. Patrolling the barricaded streets of City 17, they provide heavy overwatch for Combine squads. In the theater of total war, these walking tanks shatter fortified resistance positions, shielding the relentless advance of ground infantry. Their lethal efficiency stems from a devastating arsenal and an unnatural agility across rugged, forested terrain. Despite their towering stature, Striders fold their massive frames to stalk human prey through the claustrophobic darkness of tunnels. Curiously, a crouching Strider scuttles significantly faster than its upright counterpart, yet this rapid, folded gait accelerates mechanical wear and drags its vulnerable chassis dangerously close to the explosive wrath of the resistance. Lowering its profile blinds the Titan's sweeping gaze. In the untamed outlands, nimble hunters escort these behemoths, flushing out smaller prey, while Combine dropships ferry the towering synths directly into the heart of the slaughter. Folded into a compact, lifeless knot beneath a dropship, the Strider awaits deployment. Below, the Hunter, a rapid, lethal scout once dubbed the Mini-Strider, sweeps the rugged terrain, clearing the path and shielding its colossal masters. Encased in a gleaming, blue-green exoskeleton, the Hunter bounds forward on 3 muscular equine legs. Twin blue optical sensors pierce the gloom, mounted above brutal flechette launchers and long claws designed to tear through flesh and barricade alike. Razor-sharp talons cap its limbs, ready to flay any who stand in its path. Heavily armored against small arms fire, the Hunter announces its deadly approach with the same piercing, synthetic shrieks that haunt humanity's nightmares. Emitting piercing shrieks, Hunters bleed a pale, milky fluid when struck. Their reliance on speed and range renders them clumsy within the suffocating concrete labyrinth of tight urban environments. Gathering in deadly packs, these agile predators employ flanking maneuvers and suppressing fire to escort the towering Striders, trading heavy ordnance for terrifying, relentless speed. Quick-witted and cruel, these synths prefer mid-range engagements, firing explosive flechettes with lethal precision. Beyond that bloody middle distance, their sluggish darts lose their murderous bite. Closing the gap with a sudden, violent charge, the hunter secures its kill. Above them, the Combine dropship, a heavily armored, multi-purpose synth, descends vertically, bearing its grim, detachable cargo. Designed to rapidly deploy Combine forces into the meat grinder, this bizarre synth resembles a bloated manta ray, its front and rear limbs housing the roaring engines of its flight. Retractable wings in its forelegs allow for grim maneuverability, while 4 central limbs end in fleshy suction cups to grip heavy payloads. Stripped of innate weaponry, the dropship itself remains a passive beast. Yet the detachable pods it carries bristle with forward-mounted pulse turrets, designed to ruthlessly suppress landing zones as the Combine rapidly deploys soldiers, APCs, and towering striders. Ferrying squads of civil protection into the fray, these aerial beasts also scatter roller mines like deadly seeds, serving as airborne mine layers. The streamlined troop pod hangs heavy beneath its belly. Suspended like a swollen metallic egg, the heavily armored drop pod bristles with a precise pulse turret, ready to chew through any resistance fighters waiting in the landing zone. Though heavily armored, enough explosive force can shatter these pods. The Combine gunship, an aerial synth mirroring a predatory attack helicopter, prowls the sky, a segmented nightmare of insectoid and crustacean flesh. Driven by dual-jet engines and a rear rotor boasting 5 transparent, veined blades, the gunship cuts through the smog. Fin-like appendages guide its grim, gliding turns above the battlefield. 4 compound eyes of bruised violet scan the ruins, guiding a rapid-fire pulse cannon and a ventral annihilator. Wrapped in heavy armor, the gunship simply shrugs off desperate small arms fire. Only heavy explosives can tear this beast from the sky. Lacking the crude bombs of the hunter chopper, the gunship trades raw payload for terrifying maneuverability and surgical, relentless accuracy. Called down by a desperate infantry flare, the gunship strikes where foot soldiers cannot tread. It ruthlessly guards the Combine's darkest secrets, the Citadel core, the Overwatch Nexus, and Nova Prospect. Over critical targets, gunships fly in defensive formations to intercept incoming rockets. Yet, out in the desolate wastes, a lone gunship patrols. Meanwhile, the grotesque advisors lurk as ultimate synths. Resembling bloated, pallid grubs, the advisors are stripped of earthly features, devoid of eyes or ears. A single, cold, cybernetic ocular device pierces the flesh of their featureless alien faces. Encased in an olive-drab shell that leaves only their grotesque heads exposed, they bear metallic collars etched with cryptic golden runes, utilizing crude mechanical appendages to snatch their helpless prey. Despite possessing devastating psychic intellect, their bloated larval forms remain physically frail. Beyond 2 mechanical arms and a sickening, prehensile tongue, they possess no natural defense against the violent world. Their flight suits offer no armor, but their minds are weapons of mass destruction. Whispering telepathically into the compromised mind of Dr. Breen, they unleash crushing psychic waves to repel attackers. These psychic assaults manifest as blinding visions and skull-splitting agony. Stripped of vocal cords, they project their cold, alien will directly into the minds of pawns like Wallace Breen. Wielding telekinetic malice, a Combine advisor effortlessly immobilizes multiple targets, crushing metal barrels and human bone alike. Even their levitation relies on this unseen force, rippling the very air beneath their bloated forms. Though capable of juggling multiple victims, these grotesque overlords lose their telekinetic grip when subjected to severe pain. Their neurological dominance demands an unbroken, fragile concentration, easily shattered by brute physical trauma. To extract secrets, the advisor plunges its grotesque tongue directly into a victim's brain, or simply pierces the neck for a swift kill. In the shadows of early development, a far vaster army of Combine synths was conceived. Consigned to the cutting room floor, these discarded synths haunt the leaked beta of 2003. They remain mere phantoms of non-canonical lore, a sprawling labyrinth of lost ideas too vast to explore here. Leaving those beta ghosts behind, the narrative shifts to the Combine's first 20 years on Earth. Absolute dominance is secured through a brutal suppression field, poisoned water supplies, and the relentless static of media manipulation. Disobedience earns a swift, surgical mind replacement, leaving humanity with barely a whisper of resistance. Yet, behind this curtain of absolute tyranny and advanced machinery, the Combine harbors a glaring, desperate weakness. Their grasp on teleportation remains flawed. As Dr. Mossman notes, the Combine can bridge universes, but cannot jump across a single dimension. They covet the elegant, localized teleportation, perfected in the doomed halls of Black Mesa. Playing a dangerous double game, Mossman helps construct a local teleporter within the grim walls of Nova Prospect. Yet, the Combine's crude machinery remains a bloated, inefficient behemoth compared to Black Mesa's sleek designs. Fueled by a massive dark energy reactor, the Combine's device dwarfs humanity's compact, grid-powered teleporters. Meanwhile, the alien border world of Zen achieves the same impossible transit without a single wire or spark of generated power. Though the physics remain shrouded in mystery, Zen acts as a hidden dimensional axis, a cosmic slingshot for spatial jumps. The Combine, however, can only tear through the veil from their own distant universe. Stranded without local transit, the Combine's failure to calculate the dark energy equation leaves their technology dangerously unstable. This glaring blind spot in their dimensional mastery exposes a desperate vulnerability in their iron-fisted rule. This desperate need fuels their obsession with the Borealis, a lost Aperture science vessel. Aperture's mastery of portable, intradimensional teleportation represents a holy grail that could cement the Combine's eternal grip on Earth. Seizing Aperture science, GLaDOS sealed the facility into a subterranean fortress 4,000 meters deep, locking out even the Combine. In the dark, a maddened Doug Ratman patiently awaited Chell's awakening to spark the events of Portal. Long after the Combine invasion, Chell wakes from stasis in a sterile Aperture relaxation vault, oblivious to the ruined world above. Surrounded by mundane furnishings and hazard warnings, a cold robotic voice breaks her long silence. The mechanical voice invites her to begin, guiding her through a pristine gauntlet of weighted cubes, heavy buttons, and fizzling emancipation grills. It is merely the opening act of a cruel, orchestrated performance. Driven by GLaDOS, Chell navigates a relentless sequence of escalating trials. In the second chamber, she claims the portal gun, a tool of spatial defiance essential for surviving the labyrinth's increasingly deadly logic. Initially, the device is restricted, firing only a single blue tear in reality. The first 7 chambers masquerade as routine corporate testing, hiding the true, sinister nature of her mechanical warden. The illusion shatters in the 8th chamber, where deadly toxic waste is introduced as a grim penalty for failure. By the 11th trial, Chell wields the fully powered device, tearing dual holes through the facility's pristine walls. GLaDOS directs the ordeal through seemingly pre-recorded messages, yet her dialogue frequently glitches, cutting off at the most sinister moments. Beyond the bubbling acid and these unsettling stutters, the sterile nightmare proceeds with cold efficiency. There is no time to question the madness as the trials grow increasingly lethal. Heavy cubes, volatile energy pellets, moving platforms, and corrosive pits form a deadly, escalating dance of physics and survival. Amidst the lethal ballet of acid pits and emancipation grills, Test Chamber 16 forces Chell to face a grim reality. Here, Aperture Science deploys its first true executioners, automated sentry turrets driven by fractured personality cores. These sleek sentinels do more than merely plague the testing tracks. They stand guard over Aperture's darkest restricted zones, serving as brutal proving grounds for military androids and the portal device itself. Clad in the sterile white polymer signature to Aperture's design, each machine glares through a single, unblinking red eye, standing a silent, deadly vigil over the Enrichment Center's decaying maintenance corridors. They speak in a synthetic, childlike whisper, echoing GLaDOS's own cadence, their unsettling politeness masking a murderous intent. Even as Chell knocks them to the cold floor, they offer a chilling, programmed forgiveness. Beneath that innocent shell lie twin machine guns, springing from concealed hatches the moment a target is acquired. It is a ruthless mechanism of sudden death, mirroring the brutal efficiency of a Combine sentry. Death is delivered via Aperture brand resolution pellets, poured blindly into a crude redistribution chamber. This internal hopper grants the compact machine an unnervingly deep reservoir of lethal ammunition. These pellets aren't fired through combustion. A violent spring-loaded cylinder hurls them through the barrels. Housed just above this crude mechanism of slaughter sits the turret's fragile, captive personality core. A crude logic chip dictates the binary choice of murder, toggling synthetic empathy on and off at a whim. Before the collapse, Aperture peddled these consumer executioners in hundreds of cheerful, domestic colorways. They came cloaked in forest camouflage, brick patterns, or a garish hue Cave Johnson mockingly dubbed, "What idiot picked this?" Yet, their most haunting feature remains their melodic, choir-like voices. Originally designed for home defense, the prototypes terrified children with their mechanical shrieks. Aperture's grim solution was to program them with soothing lullabies, turning a lethal weapon into a singing guardian. GLaDOS casually informs Chell that Test Chamber 16 is sealed for routine maintenance, seamlessly replacing it with a brutal, live-fire obstacle course originally designed to break military androids. Apologizing with venomous sweetness for the lethal inconvenience, GLaDOS wishes her luck. She whispers of an android hell, a very real abyss awaiting any machine that dares to defy the enrichment center. Though GLaDOS weaves lies like a spider, this mechanical purgatory, be it a torture chamber or a roaring incinerator, implies a cruel truth. Aperture engineered its androids to feel the paralyzing grip of fear. Deep within the sterile walls of Chamber 16, Chell uncovers a hidden, rotting alcove. Here, the pristine facade crumbles, revealing desperate, frantic warnings scrawled by a mind pushed past the brink. This is the invisible ghost of Doug Ratman. Surviving on cold beans and dirty water, he slept on flattened Aperture boxes, leaving behind a trail of manic graffiti in these forgotten, shadowy dens. Behind a shattered wall propped open by weighted cubes, Ratman's darkest revelation is smeared in black ink. The cake is a lie. Soon after, Chamber 17 introduces the infamous companion cube. Stamped with a pink heart instead of the sterile Aperture logo, this heavy block is presented as a friend. Yet, the facility's cold, robotic voice incessantly reminds Chell that the object possesses no soul. GLaDOS warns that the cube cannot speak, a cruel nod to Ratman's shattered psyche, who hallucinated its whispers to survive the turrets. Ultimately, this silent friend is destined for a fiery betrayal. Chell is forced to hurl her only companion into the emergency intelligence incinerator, exposing GLaDOS's lie about heat-resistant equipment. Nearby, another of Ratman's hidden sanctuaries reeks of obsession, plastered with stolen photographs. Faces on the wall are obscured by crude companion cube stickers, the frantic art of a broken man. Ahead lies Test Chamber 19, where a final gauntlet of energy pellets and moving platforms awaits its victim. A conveyor delivers Chell toward a roaring blast furnace, but a desperate portal shot rips her to safety. Feigning innocence, the robotic voice demands a submission posture for Cake as she vanishes into Aperture Science's rusted maintenance bowels. The synthetic voice frays into nervous agitation as Chell navigates the decaying offices of Aperture Science. Armed with her portal device, she follows Ratman's frantic, scrawled pleas for help, mad graffiti pointing the bloody path toward GLaDOS. Her path through the perilous complex is choked by standard sentries, a rocket turret, and lethal puzzles, all failing to halt her grim advance. Ratman's paranoid warnings abruptly cease just before a massive, orchestrated ambush. Lacking the arsenal to survive this gauntlet, Ratman staked his life on Chell's stubborn grit and her portal gun. She finally breaches the central AI chamber, discovering the omnipresent voice of GLaDOS belongs to a colossal, suspended machine. Spherical modules cling to the mechanical Leviathan. GLaDOS promises a surprise, only to drop her morality core onto the cold floor. Dismissing the sphere as dead weight, she summons a rocket turret and initiates a lethal neurotoxin countdown. Redirecting the turret's fire, Chell strips the machine of its remaining cores, feeding them to the emergency incinerator. The resulting implosion violently ejects them to the surface, where Chell awakens in a ruined Aperture Science parking lot. Amidst the smoldering wreckage of GLaDOS, the fabled party escort bot materializes, dragging the unconscious woman away, while politely thanking her for assuming the submission posture. She is unceremoniously dumped into a stasis-inducing relaxation vault. The hotel-styled stasis chamber becomes a tomb as Aperture's main power grid fails, suffocating the cryo-sleepers. Watching from the shadows, a desperate Ratman swallows his final 2 antipsychotic pills and steps out of the dark to save her. Having followed her to the surface, he almost walked away, but watching the machine drag her back ignites a crushing guilt. He had bumped her to the top of the test roster, sealing her grim fate. Ignoring his companion cube's phantom objections, Ratman descends into the powerless facility, finding Chell locked in a dying cryo chamber. He scrambles toward the control room, but the medication has silenced his cube, leaving him lost in the dark. A turret's bullet shatters his leg, plunging him into unconsciousness. Awakening to a returning psychosis, he realizes a true rescue is impossible. His whispering cube suggests a grim alternative, locking her in indefinite stasis to preserve her life. Bleeding out, he patches her pod into the grid, damning her to an endless sleep with no programmed wake-up call. Meanwhile, the grim events of Half-Life, Alyx unfold in the bleak window between 2015 and 2024. In a Baltic quarantine zone littered with Cyrillic decay, 15 years after the Resonance Cascade and 5 before Gordon Freeman's awakening, a young Alyx Vance obsessively monitors the Combine Citadel's brutal, creeping construction. Charting the nightmare on a whiteboard from her hidden roost, she notes a bare, alien spire piercing the April sky. Shrouded in a perpetual violent storm, the monolithic structure earns the moniker Citadel by the heat of June. Its true purpose remains a terrifying mystery as scaffolding and massive power cables begin choking the city below. A brutal barricade seals the base, while a newly grafted landing pad welcomes the constant, shrieking arrival of Combine dropships. Strange, rib-like structures pulse rhythmically along the tower's spine as the atmospheric storm finally breaks. By late November, Alyx records a volatile, self-sustaining energy source bleeding from the center, its violent fluctuations plunging the city into sudden blackouts. Black metallic plating slowly armors the Citadel's naked exterior like a growing carapace. The scaffolding shifts with sinister intent, birthing new, gargantuan cables each day, while the oppressive ground-level perimeter wall creeps ever outward. As the game opens, 19-year-old Alyx Vance, her father Eli, and the eccentric Russell successfully heist a Combine mini-reactor. But Eli uncovers whispers of a massive, floating anomaly within City 17's quarantine zone, drawing the Empire's deadly gaze. The Combine strikes, taking both Vances captive until Russell's drone orchestrates Alyx's narrow escape. Armed with gravity gloves and a heavily modified 1911 pistol, she learns Eli is bound for the brutal interrogation chambers of Nova Prospekt. Her stolen sidearm boasts a custom muzzle compensator, a restricted 10-round magazine, and a digital ammo counter glowing in the dark. The slide bears the faded engraving of Le Clarion, a ghost corporation from before the world ended. The Le Clarion stamp marks a relic from a world before the 7-Hour War, its cold steel bearing the cryptic designations C11 and C91 near the trigger, while the right flank hides further forgotten inscriptions. The Combine brands every scavenged firearm with their oppressive emblem, claiming the spoils of a broken earth. Across the wasteland, their officers, foot soldiers, and zombified thralls wear spare pistol magazines strapped to rotting flesh. Relegated to a mere sidearm, the pistol Russell hands Alyx Vance is a weaker breed, its Combine emblem violently filed away. Soon, scavenged resin and hijacked Combine fabricators will forge this stripped iron into something deadlier. Alyx Vance soon unearths a heavier argument, a break-action, semi-automatic shotgun. Forged by Rattel before the invasion and later co-opted by the Combine, this compact, short-barreled brute boasts an extended magazine built for intimate, bloody encounters. Outfitted with a folding vertical grip and a glowing digital ammo counter, the weapon is compact enough to fire one-handed. The Combine twisted these designs into heavy variants for their armored enforcers, abandoning the pump action rhythm. This break action killer demands a brutal choreography. Snap the barrel, feed the shells, rack the grip. A red light screams empty, illuminating the Rattel Honey Badger logo, caliber stamps, and the inescapable Combine insignia. The Combine's laser-etched SMG, a compact rapid-fire rifle, floods the streets in the hands of their foot soldiers. Outfitted with extended magazines and iron sights, these deadly tools are gene-locked, binding the trigger to the oppressor. Pulse capsules feed sequentially into the extended magazine, a relentless rhythm of death. Yet, unguarded prototypes slip through the cracks, stripped of gene locks and sights. These raw variants wait in marked crates, ready to be turned. A final modification mounts an underbarrel rail that bleeds a searing orange when fired. Beyond firearms, Alyx Vance scrounges crude grenades, precursors to the MK3A2, that shriek a harsh warning and pulse with an angry red light. A central button awakens the explosive, shedding its safety clip as 5 tiny LEDs ignite in a fatal countdown. Each glowing bulb marks a single, fleeting second before the inevitable, deafening blast consumes the shadows. When the final light burns, destruction follows. These explosives can even be married to the shotgun, launched from a custom underbarrel attachment. But survival truly hinges on a different marvel: the gravity gloves, affectionately dubbed the Russells. Forged by Russell's eccentric genius, the gloves project vital signs, resin counts, and ammunition, a desperate substitute for the HEV suit's interface. Each mechanical gauntlet harbors a hidden pocket, clutching a single lifeline against the dark. A flashlight clings to the left glove, piercing the gloom. Beneath the delicate, fragile wiring and a repurposed watch casing lies a fractured Zen crystal, pulsing with the same unnatural telekinetic hunger as the legendary gravity gun. Russell's monitors flicker with complex schematics, while a mannequin with charred, blackened hands silently testifies to the lethal cost of early prototypes. Armed with this volatile gear, Alyx Vance descends into the rotting quarantine zone. Hunting the razor train that cages her father, Eli Vance, Alyx encounters Gary, an eccentric vortigaunt broken by Combine torture. Cruel experiments have shattered his mind, leaving him adrift in a fractured, non-linear perception of time. Severed from the telepathic song of his vortigaunt brethren, the escapee haunts the quarantine zone. Alyx Vance traces his madness through the ruins, finding deadly traps and crumbling walls painted with manic prophecies of past and future. Surviving on roasted headcrabs, the hermit bears the brutal scars of Combine implants and a cruel CP brand seared into his chest. He delivers a chilling prophecy. Eli Vance is doomed, a fate Alyx cannot rewrite alone. Begging Alyx to liberate his kin, enslaved as living batteries to suspend the massive vault, he points her toward the Northern Star. Her grim path leads to Fairview Junction, now choked by a heavily fortified Combine checkpoint. Once a bustling subway hub, Fairview Junction now rots within the quarantine zone. Faded maps hint at its forgotten transit glory, while a brutally concreted tunnel proves the Combine has permanently severed the city's subterranean arteries. Repurposed into a suffocating blockade, the station bristles with crackling force fields and Combine charging stations. The quarantine zone has strangled all civilian movement, leaving these subterranean veins to pump only the cold blood of the occupation. The quarantine zone chokes the city's arteries, leaving once bustling transit hubs to rot in silent decay. Down in the gloom, Alyx Vance shatters that silence, derailing a Combine train to crush 3 advisors lurking within. Pulled from the wreckage by Gary, a battered Eli Vance delivers a grim revelation. The Combine hoards a superweapon in a vault suspended above the quarantine zone. Gary urges Alyx toward the Northern Star to breach it. Time bleeds away as Gary begs her to seize the weapon before the Combine relocates it. Dismissing his cryptic warnings as typical Vortigaunt riddles, Alyx descends into the Terminal Gardens, a subway station drowning in shadows. Ambushed by Combine death squads, she navigates a station scarred by alien occupation. The oppressors have wired this subterranean tomb with their own cold machinery, repurposing the tracks to haul captive Vortigaunts aboard brutal razor trains. Among the alien machinery sits the Fabricator, a Combine configuration station designed to forge weapon upgrades from scavenged resin. A cold, unblinking camera rests within its shell, silently scanning the face of anyone daring to approach. Authorized Combine personnel need only press a button, while unrecognized faces are met with a deadlock. Once bypassed, the machine demands a weapon, illuminating a sterile menu that prices every lethal modification in raw resin. Feeding the machine a weapon and a handful of resin pucks yields a brutal upgrade. This alien substance is highly malleable, kept perfectly preserved in glass capsules until the Fabricator demands its Dark Alchemy. This unnatural malleability makes resin the perfect catalyst for modification. Nearby, heavy Combine lockboxes cling to the walls, hoarding the grim currency of survival: ammunition, grenades, healing syringes, batteries, and glowing grub capsules. Stamped with barcodes and the oppressive seal of City 17, these lockboxes hum with internal battery power. Sometimes wired directly into the grid, one such looted container even hangs suspended from the ceiling of Russell's makeshift laboratory. Gutted and rewired with car batteries, Russell's salvaged lockbox projects flickering holograms into the gloom. To manipulate these Combine machines, be it a Fabricator or a sealed cache, Alyx must forcefully bypass their alien security. She relies on her custom multi-tool, a jury-rigged marvel of scavenged cassette tapes and frayed wires bound in grey duct tape. This crude but brilliant device channels electromagnetic pulses to bend Combine circuitry to her will. It cracks fabricators, disarms laser trip mines, and forces heavy blast doors wide. Unlike the sleek device she will wield 5 years later, this early prototype relies on a physical rotary mechanism jammed directly into alien power ports. She christens the tool Alyx, mirroring Russell's ego with his gravity gloves. Among the spoils it unlocks are antlion grubs, glowing, pale green monstrosities with brown heads, 6 legs, and a carnivorous hunger matching their fully grown kin. Blood-slicked cave walls and scattered skeletons bear grim witness to their meat-eating nature. Yet, these oversized larvae are completely defenseless, trapped in glass, Combine capsules, or left writhing helplessly deep within the dark bowels of their nests. Fragile as glass, the slightest touch crushes an antlion grub, leaving behind a glowing yellow residue with faint restorative properties. The Combine ruthlessly exploit this anomaly, crushing the creatures to fuel their sterile medical stations. Squeezed of their vital fluids, the grubs are distilled into glowing green syringes. These crude vials offer a desperate, fleeting surge of health for those bleeding out in the shadows, far from any proper medical station. From these fragile grubs spawn the antlions, a highly invasive, insectoid nightmare from beyond the stars. They breed with terrifying speed, carving massive, sprawling colonies beneath the earth and claiming vast territories in the dark. Blind to the world, they navigate the subterranean gloom through secreted pheromones, hunting their prey by feeling the panicked vibrations of footsteps above. This ruthless hive operates through a rigid, deadly hierarchy of specialized castes. The common soldier patrols the dirt, while tireless workers carve out nests to shelter the young. Above them all looms the Antlion Guard, a hulking, armored behemoth that crushes anything daring to threaten the hive's delicate grubs. Fierce soldiers relentlessly guard the colony's founders, their true reproductive cycle shrouded in mystery. A lone resistance fighter whispers of a violent spawning season, leaving the horrifying mechanics of their endless multiplication buried in the dark. Shrouded in the mystery of their spawning cycle, it remains unknown if antlions serve a single queen. Yet their larval extract is a coveted prize, a potent nectar granting the Vortigaunts terrifying strength and a violent purple luminescence. Maturing in the dark, the vulnerable larvae are fiercely guarded by worker antlions and towering nest wardens. These subterranean predators operate as ruthless hunter-gatherers, dragging carrion and slaughtered prey into the cavernous depths to feed their ravenous young. Before portal storms dragged these Xenian horrors to Earth, Vortigaunts practiced a crude husbandry to harvest their extract. Festering beneath the soil, the antlions multiply in the dark, surviving only to become another exploited resource for the Combine. Harvesting the captured beasts, the Combine weaponize the larval fluid to fuel their medical stations. The sheer, overwhelming swarm of these creatures forces the Empire to erect heavy perimeter restrictors around Nova Prospect, the towering Citadel, and beyond. These grim medical stations mirror the old wall-mounted units of Black Mesa. Given the doomed facility's obsession with studying Xen fauna, those scientists likely harvested the very same alien larvae to synthesize their own restorative fluids. While Black Mesa prototypes likely interfaced directly with an HEV suit, the brutalist dispensaries scattered across the city, 17 quarantine zone, demand a visceral toll. A desperate user simply thrusts their bare hand into the cold, retractable mechanism. A vicious cluster of needles pierces the flesh, injecting the restorative alien fluid. It is a far cry from the old Black Mesa medkits, which utilized integrated blood analyzers to carefully synthesize and dispense the perfect chemical cocktail. Those archaic canvas bags held simple bandages and disinfectants, a stark contrast to the Combine's future iterations, relying entirely on harvested alien fluid. But the shadows of the past beckon, and the grim narrative must press on. Discarded keycards, Alyx Vance unearths bear the ghosts of a dead world. An orange pass belongs to a forgotten guard named Fedor Todorov, its magnetic strip stamped with an expiration date of December 5th, 2001. A blue card belonging to Security Chief Zdravka Damyanova expires in late 2002, breadcrumbs used by scavengers to date the catastrophic 7-hour war. Amidst these relics, Alyx clashes with a ruthless Combine kill squad. Stepping into the bleak daylight, Alyx faces the Northern Star, a 6-story pre-war hotel looming over the terminal gardens. Once a bustling plaza adorned with a statue of Lenin, the courtyard now rots beneath the Empire's shadow. Ascending through rooms choked by invasive Xen flora, Alyx battles electrified reviver headcrabs while evading the relentless Combine pursuit. Reaching the roof, she violently severs the power to a substation, keeping the ominous vault suspended in the sky. She discovers a captive Vortigaunt chained within the machinery, its life force siphoned to power the floating prison. Promising to rally his kin, the liberated alien leaves Alyx to navigate a decaying, zombie-infested industrial zone. Crawling past ravenous barnacles and entrenched infantry, she creeps into a rigged room wired with lethal explosives. Disarming the traps, Alyx spills onto a blood-stained construction site, slaughtering Combine soldiers before riding a rusted lift into the unknown. The lift deposits her inside a derelict distillery deep within the quarantine zone, a forgotten tomb that once bottled Golden Lion vodka. Scattered corpses and abandoned Combine hazmat gear tell a grim story of a failed purge. The Empire's desperate attempt to burn away the creeping Xen flora ended in slaughter. Amidst the rusted vats, Alyx encounters Larry, a ragged survivor who has spent years clinging to life in the shadows of the infested winery. Wearing the tattered remnants of a City 17 uniform, the elusive drifter introduces Alyx to the facility's most terrifying resident. Jeff was once a simple Combine laborer before the toxic spores of the quarantine zone claimed his humanity. Mutated without a headcrab, his skull splits open like a grotesque Venus flytrap lined with razor-sharp teeth. A monstrous, spiked club replaces his right arm, while bloated pods on his back constantly vomit thick clouds of noxious spores. Plunged into absolute blindness, the abomination navigates by an agonizingly sharp sense of hearing. Every footstep is a death sentence, yet this hypersensitivity becomes his fatal flaw, easily manipulated by the shattering glass of discarded vodka bottles. Bullets are utterly useless against his mutated hide, serving only to stoke his blind, violent rage. Capable of tearing through solid steel and fragile flesh, the beast executes his prey by vomiting a torrent of black, corrosive bile. Spewing black, corrosive bile, The beast tears its prey apart. Toxic spores force Alyx to stifle her coughs behind a trembling hand, hiding from a former Combine worker who now slips effortlessly through shimmering force fields. Impervious to conventional gunfire, this blind monstrosity hunts by sound alone. Warned by Larry, Alyx creeps through the decaying distillery, tossing glass bottles into the shadows to misdirect the creature they call Jeff. While Russell begs over the radio for scavenged vodka, Alyx finally lures her relentless stalker into a heavy trash compactor. She decides his grim fate, then steps outside to discover a massive Combine hatch. Built to hold back a subterranean nightmare, the heavy steel doors open to reveal the central zoo. Alyx descends into a forgotten labyrinth of tunnels, a quarantined menagerie now crawling with a vicious antlion infestation. Abandoned to the quarantine zone, the zoo has surrendered to Zen's invasive flora. Antlions nest among the enclosures, while zombified zookeepers shuffle past the bleached skulls of Earth's forgotten animals, trapped forever in their cages. Power still hums through the dead exhibits, triggering cheerful, pre-recorded animal facts over the loudspeakers. Deep in the maintenance wings, a grim Combine facility bleeds captive antlions for an orange solvent used to purge Zen growths. The blood-stained tiles and scattered corpses of Combine patrols tell a story of a recent, failed purge against the alien infestation. Beyond the slaughter, the ruined zoo connects directly to the city's dark subway lines. Tracing the yellow subway line, Alyx navigates the remnants of 14 once vibrant animal exhibits. Through the static, Eli Vance's voice breaks the silence, delivering a grim warning about their true target hovering above the city. Eli realizes the vault is no weapons cache, but a floating prison built around a hijacked apartment block. Inside lies a captive so dangerous, their very existence strikes fear into the cold heart of the Combine. Suspended in the sky as a desperate precaution, the mysterious captive offers a glimmer of hope. Seeking an alliance, Alyx pushes through the zoo's rotting sewers, emerging into the rusted decay of an abandoned railway depot. The depot's rusted cranes and toxic waste pits have been surrendered to a sprawling antlion colony. With Combine patrols driven away by the insectoid menace, Alyx slips unnoticed toward a dark passage leading underground. Past a heavy Combine blast door lies a fortified water tower, repurposed as the vault's control center. While heavily armed soldiers lock down the surface, the forgotten subterranean levels choke beneath a thick layer of Zen flora. Alyx severs the final substation, sending the massive vault plummeting until an emergency field catches it in midair. Carving a bloody path through soldiers and antlions, she breaches the facility to cut the failsafe's power. In the shadows, Alyx eavesdrops on a mysterious woman berating a Combine advisor. Desperate to relocate the vault, the scientist lets slip a crucial secret. Their high-value prisoner is a survivor of the Black Mesa incident. Whispers suggest this arrogant voice belongs to Judith Mossman, yet her commanding tone with the advisor betrays a darker authority. Hidden data reveals a different silhouette entirely, her ringed fingers pointing to an unknown, dangerous player. Hearing the transmission, Eli concludes the captive is none other than Gordon Freeman. This floating, superconducting cage draws its terrible power from the agonizing interdimensional chants of enslaved Vortigons, all chained to contain one legendary man. Constructed specifically to entomb the Black Mesa survivor, the vault swallowed an entire apartment block. Inside, a brutal maze of Combine architecture and heavily armed guards protects the path to a strange icosahedral cell. The Combine have hollowed out the upper floors, suspending the prisoner's glass cell behind heavy outer shielding. Massive rods pierce the structure, channeling the enslaved Vortigon's agonizing energy directly into the heart of the cage. As the vault's descent fractures its containment, raw Vortigaunt energy bleeds into reality. Gravity warps and dies in the ruined hallways, where the ghostly phantoms of former tenants remain forever frozen in their final, terrifying moments. Reality shatters inside the prison. Furniture hangs suspended in midair, while distorted echoes of Russell's voice haunt the upside-down apartments. Stepping through blinding blue teleporters, Alyx navigates a surreal nightmare where the laws of physics have died. Drifting through the vault's zero-gravity abyss, Alyx navigates a Combine stronghold littered with Vortigaunt energy pods and wall-mounted munitions, crossing a hard light bridge toward the heavily guarded central cell. Inside the containment cell, a crushed Combine advisor lies dead, its prisoner guarding days ended by the vault's catastrophic plunge, a descent Alyx herself triggers before blacking out in the wreckage. Awakening, amidst the concrete graveyard of a ruined parking garage, she restores power to a dead elevator, only to stir a dormant Strider that chases her through the bullet-riddled debris. Commandeering a heavy weapon from a wrecked prison transport, she shreds the towering Strider before a tractor beam pulls her skyward, Russell's parting luck drowned out by Eli's frantic, static-choked warning. The vault's interference swallows her father's voice, leaving her to explore a surreal, multi-story apartment complex trapped inside the alien superstructure, its domestic rooms violently superimposed upon one another. Spectral tenants flicker like broken film reels, trapped in a fractured space-time anomaly where the very laws of physics bleed into a bizarre, unpredictable nightmare of shifting reality. Channeling raw, Vortigaunt-like energy from her bare hands, she incinerates the vault's final defenders, crossing a crackling energy bridge to confront a strange, glowing icosahedral containment chamber. Prying the vault open, she finds not Gordon Freeman, but the G-Man, a pale architect of space-time who confesses that his unseen employers occasionally require him to gently nudge the scales of fate. Rejecting her plea to banish the Combine, the suited Phantom offers a darker bargain, a glimpse into a grim future, allowing Alyx to unleash her newfound power to vaporize the advisor destined to murder Eli Vance. Pleased with her lethal intervention, the G-Man declares her a worthy replacement for the disappointing Gordon Freeman, abandoning her to the cold void of stasis as the shadow of Half-Life 2 looms on the horizon. 2 decades after the Black Mesa disaster, the G-Man's cryptic whispers drag an unaged Gordon Freeman from the dark waters of stasis, depositing the silent physicist onto a bleak train bound for City 17. Stepping onto the sterile platform of City 17, Freeman is immediately greeted by the colossal, projected visage of Wallace Breen, whose honeyed propaganda broadcasts promise a hollow future for a subjugated humanity. Masked civil protection thugs dispense brutal discipline with stun batons, herding the weary populace through checkpoints until Freeman himself is singled out from the miserable flock and marched toward a grim interrogation room. Locked inside the sterile interrogation cell, his masked executioner suddenly kills the security feeds and strips away the Combine helmet, revealing the familiar, smirking face of his old Black Mesa colleague, Barney Calhoun. Barney quickly patches a transmission through to a stunned Isaac Kleiner, hastily plotting a dangerous route for Freeman to reach the scientist's hidden laboratory, hoping Alyx Vance will intercept him along the way. A violent pounding at the door forces Gordon out a back window, spilling him into a bleak plaza dominated by the monolithic Citadel, where armored Combine transports prowl the decaying streets like mechanical predators. Navigating the squalid tenement blocks, he witnesses the brutal efficiency of a Combine raid before the city's sterile surveillance grid detects his anomaly, unleashing a swarm of masked enforcers hungry for his blood. Guided by desperate citizens over perilous rooftops, Gordon crashes through an open window and down a rotting stairwell, only to be ambushed and beaten into darkness by the merciless batons of civil protection. From the bruising blackness emerges Alyx Vance, who dispatches the thugs with lethal grace before dragging the battered physicist into a rusted elevator, punching in a hidden code to reveal Kleiner's subterranean sanctuary. Encased once more in the iconic upgraded armor of the Mark V HEV suit, Gordon prepares to step into Kleiner's makeshift teleporter, bound for the Resistance stronghold of Black Mesa East until disaster inevitably strikes. Kleiner's makeshift teleport to Black Mesa East malfunctions, sabotaged by a wayward pet headcrab named Lamar. Gordon Freeman violently blinks through a drowning abyss, a barren wasteland, and twice materializes inside Wallace Breen's office, startling the administrator. During the second flash, Breen confers with an alien advisor and finally recognizes Freeman's face, forcing Gordon to flee City 17 on foot. He navigates the decaying urban canals, eventually commandeering a scrap-built Resistance airboat. The jury-rigged vessel glides seamlessly over toxic sludge and dry earth alike. Hunted by civil protection hit squads, Freeman slips through hidden resistance outposts, finding desperate refugees and enigmatic vortigons huddled in the city's rotting outskirts. Gifted the airboat by weary rebels, Freeman tears across the radioactive canals, a relentless Combine hunter chopper shadowing his wake. At a battered way station, a vortigaunt mechanic welds a stolen Combine pulse gun directly to the hull. Armed with stolen Combine firepower, Freeman crosses paths with an omniscient vortigaunt, whispering dark truths of Black Mesa, Zen, the G-Man, and the Nihilanth. Empowered by the new weapon, Gordon finally shreds his airborne pursuer. Shaking the Combine's relentless gaze, Freeman finally breaches the sanctuary of Black Mesa East. Judith Mossman escorts him deep underground, where Eli and Alyx Vance wait to unveil a revolutionary piece of salvaged technology. Alyx introduces the Gravity Gun, a zero-point energy field manipulator born from hazardous material research, alongside her hulking mechanical guardian, Dog. In this subterranean refuge, the Resistance repurposes the heavy industrial tool for survival. Powered by a glowing Zen crystal, the gravity gun bends physics to its will. Its primary trigger unleashes a concussive blast of kinetic energy, violently repelling heavy debris and shattering any obstacles in Freeman's path. The secondary function reaches out, pulling lighter objects through the air to hover in a suspended grip. From there, Freeman can gently drop the scavenged mass, or violently launch it forward as a makeshift projectile. While the concussive blast can displace massive wreckage, the weapon's grip fails against living flesh. Nearby, the towering mechanical beast known as Dog stands watch, forged by Eli Vance 2 decades ago from rusted scrap. Built as both a childhood plaything and a ruthless bodyguard for a young Alyx, Dog masks lethal devotion behind a playful demeanor. When provoked, the machine transforms into an unstoppable engine of crushing mechanical fury. Tearing through armor and flesh alike, Dog charges into the fray with reckless abandon, shrugging off heavy fire. The metal beast effortlessly dismantles towering Combine striders, hurling massive debris to crush its master's oppressors. A quiet game of fetch in the scrapyard ends as Combine scanners darken the sky, signaling a brutal raid on Black Mesa East. Separated from Alyx, Freeman is forced down a dark tunnel toward Ravenholm. Ravenholm is a cursed ghost town Alyx dared not mention. Once a hidden mining sanctuary free of the Combine's grip, the settlement was discovered and ruthlessly bombarded, mutating its doomed citizens into shambling, parasitic horrors. Decimated by hundreds of headcrab shells, the streets run thick with blood and crude traps. Surviving the slaughter, Freeman meets Father Grigory, the town's lone mad shepherd, who hands him a shotgun and a prayer. Grigory sacrifices himself in the graveyard flames, buying Freeman passage through the infested mines. Emerging into the bleak daylight of a rebel outpost, Gordon receives grim news from Alyx. Eli Vance has been dragged to Nova Prospect. To breach the nightmare of the former prison, Freeman must navigate the treacherous coastal stretch of Highway 17. 2 decades of Combine occupation have scattered the resistance here, forcing them into small, desperate enclaves along the cliffs. The coastline stretches out as a barren, wind-scoured wasteland, a stark testament to the Combine's parasitic harvest. The oceans themselves have been systematically drained, leaving the sea level drastically lower than in the world before. Rusted husks of forgotten ships lay marooned on the dry seabed, dwarfed by towering piers that mark the vanished tides. The crumbling infrastructure of human roads and bridges has rotted into a perilous, impassable ruin. Vicious antlions have colonized the decaying shores, turning the sand into a lethal trap for both rebel and Combine forces. Desperate survivors rely on heavy mechanical thumpers, pounding the earth to keep the subterranean horrors at bay. Thumpers pound the earth, a desperate rhythm keeping the antlion hordes at bay, while the Combine rains biological terror from above, seeding the wasteland with headcrab shells and shuffling corpses. The resistance clings to the battered coastline, their isolated outposts bleeding under relentless Combine artillery, yet this desolate fringe remains the only stage where humanity dares to fight its oppressors in the open. By the time Gordon Freeman arrives, the Combine is already tightening its grip, raiding coastal havens, just as the shifting sands introduce him to the ravenous fury of the Antlions and the fragile sanctuary of New Little Odessa. Huddled along the desolate coastline, New Little Odessa is a doomed coastal outpost, a watchtower, and a cellar waiting to be swallowed by the ever-encroaching Combine patrols. The outpost is commanded by Odessa Cubbage, a so-called colonel whose military pedigree is as hollow as the decaying world around him, a title worn like a cheap disguise. His faded jacket betrays a past in university security, a hollow rank claimed in the ashes of the 7-Hour War, though Freeman first spies this impostor through the cold lens of binoculars. Across the bay, the false colonel converses with the enigmatic G-Man on a shadowed balcony, a silent exchange Cubbage conveniently forgets as he pivots to instructing doomed rebels on downing Combine gunships. Thrusting a rocket launcher into Freeman's hands, the coward delegates the dirty work, leaving the scientist to brave a lightless, zombie-choked tunnel and drive the scout car down the final blood-soaked stretch of coastline. The desolate trek along the shoreline abruptly halts when the earth fractures, birthing the Antlion Guard, a towering behemoth of chitin and rage rising from the cursed sand. Far larger than its wretched kin, the beast wears a thick, dark red carapace, a biological battering ram forged by the wasteland to crush anything foolish enough to stand in its path. Crowned with glowing blue spines, the resilient monstrosity relies on a brutal, single-minded tactic, charging blindly to shatter its prey before tearing them apart with vicious, flailing strikes. Survival demands a deadly dance of distance and evasion, exploiting the creature's immense, barreling momentum as it hurtles forward, utterly incapable of halting its own destructive velocity. A missed charge sends the behemoth crashing into solid rock, the resulting stupor providing a fleeting window for slaughter before a watchful Vortigaunt steps in to harvest its potent theropods. These severed glands hold the power to command the ravenous Antlion swarm, a biological leash that only snaps when another Alpha Guard approaches to reclaim its natural dominion. Schooled by the Vortigaunts in the grim art of insect command, Freeman turns the wasteland's apex predators into his personal army, marching upon the heavily fortified shores of Nova Prospect. Unleashing the insectoid horde, Freeman shatters the defenses of Nova Prospect to rescue Eli Vance, only to rendezvous with Alyx and uncover Judith Mossman's bitter betrayal to Dr. Breen. Plunging into the prison's sterile nightmare, Gordon and Alyx carve a bloody path through Combine security, their desperate search for Mossman and Eli forcing them through a labyrinth of concrete and death. The traitor slips through their fingers, teleporting Eli straight into the Citadel's maw, leaving Gordon and Alyx to risk a volatile jump back to Dr. Kleiner's hidden laboratory. Materializing a week later, they find their explosive escape has ignited a full-scale uprising, transforming City 17 into a burning war zone where Freeman must plunge back into the bloody fray. While Alyx secures Kleiner's escape, Freeman leads desperate citizens through the urban slaughter, only for Alyx to return to the crossfire and fall straight into the merciless grip of the Combine. Alyx returns to Gordon's side, only to be dragged into the Citadel's belly by Combine soldiers, leaving him to breach the Overwatch Nexus, a repurposed pre-war bank, alongside a battle-hardened Barney. Fortified with alien technology, this former government hall now crawls with Combine specialists and rooftop suppression devices until Gordon and the Resistance violently seize the structure, silencing its brutal machinery. Reaching the Citadel's towering base, Gordon breaches its central levels, stepping into a mechanical nightmare of humming generators, anti-gravity platforms, and cruel energy fields designed to disintegrate living matter. Massive pipes pump unknown fluids through a jagged labyrinth of dark blue metal, the Citadel's exposed circuitry reflecting the cold, emotionless tyranny of the Combine's iron grip on humanity. Flimsy human catwalks and stairs cling to the metallic abyss like an afterthought, a grim reminder that mankind has no place here, while an unseen confiscation field strips intruders of their arms. This disintegrating technology saturates the entire fortress, instantly vaporizing the dropped rifles of dead soldiers, while razor trains shriek along internal railways to deliver their grim, mechanized cargo. That cargo consists of freshly mutilated stalkers from Nova Prospect, sealed within specialized transit pods and shipped off to perform menial repairs on the Empire's sprawling, brutalist machinery. Watched by floating scanners, these wretched slaves toil within massive military factories, where endless conveyor belts churn out grotesque, unseen horrors like the crab and mortar synths. Serving as the nerve center for legions of elite soldiers and shrieking gunships, this fortress of despair funnels a captive Gordon directly into the jaws of a glowing confiscation field. Instead of vaporizing his only hope, the confiscation field shatters, supercharging the gravity gun into a blinding blue weapon capable of ripping heavy steel from the very walls. This dark, counter-resonance anomaly allows him to snatch volatile energy orbs from the air, turning the Citadel's own power against it, but its true horror lies in its new appetite. The supercharged weapon now violently manipulates organic matter, instantly executing captured Combine soldiers and turning their electrified corpses into lethal, flesh-and-bone projectiles that annihilate their former comrades. The slaughter culminates in a final standoff with Wallace Breen, where a guilt-ridden Judith Mossman finally betrays the Administrator, moving to free Gordon, Alyx, and Eli Vance from their shackles. Desperate to flee City 17, Breen scrambles toward a dark energy teleporter, but Freeman shatters the reactor, sending the Dictator's pod plummeting into the abyss just as the machinery detonates. As the apocalyptic blast threatens to consume Gordon and Alyx atop the Citadel, time freezes. The G-Man steps from the void to reclaim his pawn, only to be interrupted by glowing Vortigaunts. The purple Vortigaunts shield Alyx and rip Freeman from the G-Man's icy grip, plunging the scientist into a chaotic void where days slip by in the blink of an eye. During this stolen time, Mossman discovers the legendary Borealis in the frozen wastes before a Combine ambush buries her transmission, leaving Gordon to awaken beneath the Citadel's crumbling, ash-choked ruins. Dog digs through the concrete graveyard, dragging Gordon and his gravity gun back to a relieved Alyx, who quickly radios Eli Vance and Isaac Kleiner from the shadow of the dying tower. Kleiner warns that the Citadel's radioactive core is a ticking time bomb poised to level City 17, forcing Dog to hurl the desperate pair back into the fortress inside a rusted car. The floor gives way, plunging their vehicle into the Citadel's bowels, where Gordon clears a path through wretched stalkers, using deadly roller mines rewired by Alyx's flickering multi-tool. Hacked by Alyx's multi-tool, reprogrammed roller mines clear the bloody path, leading them into a cold chamber where a recording echoes Wallace Breen begging a Combine advisor for off-world transit, just as a dormant advisor pod catches Alyx's eye. Inspecting the alien pod triggers a blinding telepathic assault that drives them back, but salvation waits in a humming confiscation field that supercharges the gravity gun, turning it into a devastating weapon against the remaining Combine soldiers. Descending a dark elevator shaft into the Citadel's beating heart, they discover the core, where Alyx realizes the Combine soldiers are deliberately accelerating a catastrophic meltdown, leaving the highly radioactive containment zone as their final, deadly hurdle. Shielded by his HEV suit, Gordon plunges into the radioactive crucible, battling soldiers to engage the stabilizers and delay the Citadel's destruction. Returning to find Alyx has hijacked the Combine network to steal their outgoing transmission. The stolen data reveals Judith Mossman in the frozen Arctic, her transmission about a secret resistance project violently cut short by a Combine raid, before the duo escapes down to a razor train loaded with dormant stalkers. Their promised escape violently derails, plunging Gordon into darkness until he wakes to shrieking stalkers and uses the gravity gun to free Alyx, forcing them into forgotten underground ruins crawling with antlions and grotesque new zombies. Carving a bloody path to a rusted elevator, they finally breach the surface to find City 17 in ruins, while Isaac Kleiner's hijacked Breencasts urge survivors to flee and celebrate the death of the Combine's reproductive suppression field. Navigating the shattered streets through a gauntlet of Combine patrols and ravenous antlions, the weary pair finally reaches a resistance safehouse, where a grim Barney Calhoun reveals the enemy's desperate efforts to trap the fleeing citizens. With the Combine ruthlessly blockading the evacuation routes, Barney outlines a desperate assault on the train station, prompting Alyx to volunteer herself and Gordon as bait to draw the enemy fire away from the escaping refugees. Armed with a fresh crowbar from Barney, Gordon leads Alyx across crumbling rooftops into a war-torn hospital, where he must obliterate a Combine gunship with an RPG before they can escape the blood-soaked wards. Emerging from the hospital's shadow, they reunite with Barney to escort the terrified citizens through a gauntlet of Combine fire, securing the final evacuation train before turning to plot their own desperate escape from the doomed city. A towering strider blocks their path until Gordon shatters its armored shell, allowing Alyx to hijack a departing train just as the Citadel finally detonates, spewing advisor escape pods before the Apocalyptic Shockwave swallows their carriage. Trapped within the mangled wreckage of their derailed train, Gordon is pulled from the twisted metal by Alyx's gravity gun, stepping out to witness the smoldering corpse of City 17 and the terrifying birth of a super portal. As a violent portal storm obliterates the bridge and rips open a path into the dark mines, Alyx declares they must carry the stolen Citadel data to the Resistance stronghold hidden within the old White Forest base. Purchased on the cheap by Black Mesa before the world ended, the sprawling White Forest facility hides two massive intercontinental ballistic missile silos beneath the Earth, remnants of a forgotten Cold War now repurposed for survival. Deep within the active silo, the Resistance feverishly prepares a satellite rocket to seal the super portal, while the ruined second shaft echoes with false motion alarms triggered by nesting birds in the decaying subterranean gloom. Above ground, the sprawling compound is a labyrinth of makeshift barracks and vital supply caches, where a massive hangar bridges the fortified northern and southern gates beneath the watchful eye of a looming radar tower. Commanded by the abrasive Dr. Arne Magnusson and his Vortigaunt assistant Uriah, White Forest hums with the desperate energy of engineers, alien janitors, and ragged rebels clad in a patchwork of scavenged armor and civilian rags. Following the fall of Black Mesa East, Isaac Kleiner and Eli Vance sought sanctuary within these concrete walls, joining Magnusson's frantic research into the anatomy of the Combine superportal and the theoretical means to collapse it. From this desperate science came the Magnusson device, a spiked, oval-shaped explosive designed to latch onto the armored carapace of a Combine strider, turning the towering mechanical beasts into towering pillars of fire and scrap. Armed with only their scavenged weapons, Gordon and Alyx carve through a zombie-choked tunnel to hail White Forest, their desperate transmission finally answered by Dr. Kleiner. Eli and Vance breathes a heavy sigh of relief at their survival, but Dr. Magnusson cuts in, demanding the stolen data just as the mechanical howl of Combine hunters confirms the enemy is closing in. A Combine hunter strikes from the shadows, leaving Alyx bleeding out until a lone Vortigaunt intervenes. Separated by a shattered elevator, Gordon plunges into the subterranean nightmare of the Antlian tunnels to reach the Resistance. Reaching the makeshift Resistance outpost, Gordon finds the Vortigaunt tending to a fading Alyx, but his subterranean trespass has awakened the Antlian horde, forcing a desperate defense with two rapidly failing machine guns. Vortigaunt reinforcements materialize just in time to shatter the final Antlian wave, but saving Alyx demands a rare larval extract, plunging Gordon and his alien guide back into the zombie-infested bowels of the hive. Deep within the rotting caverns, they encounter the Antlian Guardian, revered by the Vortigaunts as the Ancient Guardian, a towering apex predator, distinguished from standard guards by its unnatural, bioluminescent hue. Marked by glowing fluorescent stripes, this matriarchal beast cannot be killed without spoiling the precious larval extract and dooming the colony's eggs, confining her eternal vigil to the deepest, darkest heart of the nest. Rarely surfacing, only one guardian rules each nest, its origins as a pupa or mutated guard remaining a dark mystery, and its toxic strikes, much like a poison headcrab, instantly drain a victim's vitality. Delivering venomous blows packed with lethal blunt force, the matriarch fiercely protects her subterranean egg clutches, her terrifying presence signaling to Gordon that the life-saving larval extract is finally within reach. Knowing a lethal blow would ruin the extract's healing properties, Gordon plays a tense game of evasion through the dark tunnels, finally securing the glowing resin alongside the Vortigaunt before fleeing back to Alyx. The Vortigaunts channel the glowing extract to pull Alyx from the brink, but the ritual fractures reality. Time freezes dead, and the G-Man steps from the void, reminding Gordon of his march toward White Forest. Hinting at Alyx's dark utility in his grand design, the G-Man plants a hypnotic warning for Eli Vance, prepare for unforeseen consequences, before dissolving into the ether, leaving the Vortigaunts to finish their restorative work. Emerging from the earth, the trio witnesses a massive Combine army marching north, their ranks swollen with advisor pods. Alyx realizes this mechanized death march is heading straight for the resistance at White Forest. Carving through antlions and slaying 2 guards, Gordon reaches the nearby outpost, only to find a bloodbath. The mingled corpses of resistance fighters and Combine soldiers tell a grim tale of a sudden zombie ambush. Locating an abandoned muscle car on a distant bridge, Gordon wades through a valley of the undead to claim the vehicle, returning to Alyx, who bids a warm, lingering farewell to their Vortigaunt savior. The Resistance muscle car proves to be a vital asset, boasting a passenger seat unlike the old coastal buggy, offering superior speed and handling as Gordon and Alyx tear across the ruined, unforgiving landscape. Modeled after a classic Dodge Charger, the heavy vehicle drifts wildly on sharp turns, but excels at smashing through Combine barricades and outrunning hunters when a bitter firefight means certain death. Racing toward White Forest, a collapsed tunnel forces a detour to an abandoned radio tower. Alyx hopes to warn the resistance of the approaching Combine army, but the dead transmitter demands Gordon's immediate intervention. Descending into a shadowed basement to reroute the power, Gordon restores the current just as a Combine hunter stalks into view, forcing him and Alyx into a brutal firefight against the synthetic pack. After leaving the shed and dismantling 2 more hunters in the bloody dirt, Alyx finally powers up the transmitter to hail White Forest, but heavy static chokes her desperate warning to the resistance. Static chokes Alyx's transmission to White Forest, the warning dying on her lips. Pushing through rusted gates, they drive until a decaying shed offers shelter, concealing a grotesque Combine incubation pod in its shadows. A Combine advisor slumbers within the mechanical womb. Gordon's gravity gun shatters its life support, birthing a telekinetic nightmare that pins them to the concrete until a rogue spark from the ruined machinery bites the beast. Enraged, the wounded advisor drags Gordon toward its maw, but another electrical eruption forces the coward to flee. Combined soldiers swarm the perimeter, driving Freeman and Alyx onto the rusted rails with a hunter chopper screaming overhead. A resistance outpost offers fleeting sanctuary before the muscle car's engine finally dies. Turning the sky's wrath against itself, Gordon catches the chopper's own mines, hurling them back to shatter the metal bird in a fiery rain. Grateful rebels rebuild the ruined engine, but automated Combine turrets lock down the exit. Slipping through the shadows, Gordon guts the control room, returning to find their ride resurrected and gifted with a makeshift radar. The road ahead is a graveyard of Combine blockades and hidden caches, forcing a bitter detour. In a forgotten settlement, an ambush springs from the silence, demanding a brutal toll in blood and spent brass. Leaving the shattered remains of Combine hunters in the dirt, Gordon severs the barricade's power grid. White Forest finally looms ahead, but a towering strider ambushes their arrival, only to be crushed by the metallic fury of Dog. Deep within White Forest, Alyx delivers the stolen Citadel data to Eli and Dr. Kleiner. Here, the arrogant Arne Magnusson holds court, his brilliant mind clouded by a petty, decades-old grudge against Freeman. Magnusson still mourns a ruined Black Mesa casserole, even as he prepares a satellite to seal the Combine's portal. Suddenly, alarms shatter the bunker's peace, forcing Gordon into the cold to face the invading horde alone. Bloodied but victorious, Gordon seals the missile silo and returns to find the scientists dissecting Judith Mossman's desperate transmission. The Phantom project is the Borealis, Aperture Science's ghost ship, harboring a weapon of apocalyptic design. Kleiner hungers to turn Aperture's phantom weapon against the Combine, but Eli sees only the ashes of another Black Mesa. He demands a rescue mission for Judith, though reason dictates the resistance leader cannot risk the snare. As Kleiner departs to untangle Judith's code, the G-Man's spectral visage bleeds onto the monitors. Alyx delivers his hypnotic warning, and Eli collapses, haunted by the exact words the Phantom whispered before Black Mesa burned. The ghosts of Black Mesa must wait. The Combine marches on White Forest. Magnuson arms Gordon with his namesake explosive, a fragile charge designed to be hurled by the gravity gun to shatter the towering Striders. Gordon drives out into the freezing valley, meeting an apocalyptic tide of Combine Striders head-on. Through a storm of shattered armor and desperate detonations, he breaks their siege and races back to the silo. The launch sequence ticks down in the breathless bunker. Magnuson offers a rare, grudging nod of respect for the saved rocket, leaving Gordon to throw the final switch and ignite the heavens. Stepping into the biting air to watch the launch, Eli pulls Gordon aside into the shadows. He knows the G-Man's cryptic warning points directly to the Borealis, demanding the ghost ship be destroyed at any cost. Alyx calls them to witness the sky healing as the super portal collapses, severing the Combine's throat, but victory turns to ash in the hangar, where two advisors ambush them, paralyzing the heroes and seizing Eli. A grotesque appendage pierces Eli's skull, stealing his life in an instant. Dog crashes through the roof, maiming one beast and scattering the other, leaving Alyx to weep over the hollowed corpse of her father. The G-Man's sinister machinations suggest not a fractured multiverse, but a single, tortured timeline. Even the cryptic murals left behind by the Vortigaunt Gary paint a linear doom, ending with the Citadel's fiery demise. Gary's mural paints the Citadel's fiery demise as the final truth, a testament to the Vortigaunt's fractured sight, where past and future bleed into a single, inescapable point that even the G-Man cannot freely manipulate. Stripped of his puppet when the Vortigaunts snatch Gordon Freeman away, the G-Man pivots, plunging into the murky past to rewrite history and groom a fresh pawn, sparking a grim, new chain of events. His temporal meddling ripples outward, prompting the Combine to construct a vault fueled by captive Vortigaunts, a high-alert paranoia that dooms the G-Man to chains until Alyx Vance uncovers this floating prison. Breaching the vault, Alyx Vance steps directly into the G-Man's snare, trading her own freedom for her father's life as the suited Phantom erases Eli's bloody demise and drags her into the cold, dark of stasis. Yet the shadows conceal glaring contradictions, whispering questions of why Alyx walks freely through City 17 without a single memory of her cosmic bargain, a paradox tangled in the heavy, suffocating theories of fractured time. Trapped in the illusion of a linear existence, the pawns accept their altered reality as absolute truth, entirely blind to the cosmic hand rewriting their memories into a seamless, unbroken tapestry of lies. The G-Man's temporal surgery undoes the tragedy of Episode 2, swapping a defiant Gordon Freeman for a captive Alyx Vance, leaving a grieving Eli to arm Gordon for a desperate, bloody rescue mission. As decades, or perhaps millennia grind, Aperture science to dust following GLaDOS's ruin, the bleeding ghost of Doug Ratman fades into the facility's shadows, leaving only frantic, scrawled whispers to suggest he somehow cheated death. Roused from a timeless slumber by the frantic babbling of Wheatley, Chell finds her stasis chamber crumbling as the desperate core smashes through the decaying walls, urging her to retrieve the portal device and escape the ruined facility. Navigating the rusted guts of the ruined facility, their desperate bid for the escape pods ends in disaster when Wheatley's clumsy hacking accidentally jolts GLaDOS awake, reigniting her cold, mechanical thirst for testing. A monstrous robotic claw crushes Wheatley like a tin can as the resurrected GLaDOS, haunted by the digital echoes of her own murder, turns her glowing, venomous gaze upon Chell to demand bloody retribution. Condemned once more to the sterile purgatory of the testing tracks, Chell navigates a lethal gauntlet of faith plates and searing lasers, dancing through GLaDOS's sadistic maze of turrets and hard light bridges. As Chell endures the machine's cruel mockery and empty promises of rewards, a battered but unbroken Wheatley scurries through the dark spaces behind the walls, quietly weaving a desperate scheme for their salvation. Fleeing the psychological torture of GLaDOS's relentless taunts about her orphaned past, Chell slips into the facility's hidden bowels, guided by Wheatley to sabotage the tyrant's neurotoxin reserves and cripple her turret defenses. While Wheatley bumbles in the dark, Chell executes a silent coup, swapping the turret template for a dud and severing the neurotoxin lines, only to be violently dragged back into GLaDOS's central lair. Stripped of her deadly gas and lethal guns, the tyrant falls, allowing Chell to plug Wheatley into the mainframe, but the intoxicating rush of absolute power instantly corrupts the little core's fragile mind. Halting the escape elevator, a power-mad Wheatley stuffs GLaDOS into a rotting potato, only to fly into a violent rage when the deposed queen brands him an engineered moron, plunging them both into the abyss. Plummeting into the forgotten salt mine depths of the 1950s, Chell wades through toxic gels and the booming, recorded ghost of Cave Johnson, climbing through the rusted, buried history of Aperture science itself. Forging a desperate pact in the subterranean gloom, Chell impales the potato-bound GLaDOS onto her portal device, where the echoing voice of Cave Johnson's assistant begins to stir a terrifying, forgotten memory within the machine. As the crackling audio logs unravel the facility's darkest secret, a stunned GLaDOS finally pieces together her own tragic genesis, realizing the human soul of Caroline was violently chained inside her cold, metallic shell. Caroline's ghost bleeds into the machine, birthing GLaDOS in a tangle of wires and regret. As buried memories surface, a strange mercy softens her gaze toward Chell, haunted by a conscience she realizes is her own. Dragged back into the sterile heart of Aperture, they find Wheatley playing a mad king in a crumbling castle. His crude, broken labyrinths mask a lethal incompetence, blinding him to the reactor's screaming countdown. The facility groans, fracturing under the weight of Wheatley's grotesque creations, abominations of metal and mechanical cubes. GLaDOS hurls a lethal paradox at his core, but the trap shatters against the dense armor of his sheer stupidity. Escaping the executioner's snare, they breach the usurper's rusted throne room. Chell weaves portals to turn Wheatley's own bombs against him, catching the corrupted cores GLaDOS tosses through the smoke to poison his fractured mind. The stalemate resolution button is a rigged trap, detonating in a flash of ruin. As the neglected ceiling tears open to reveal a cold, mocking moon, a bleeding Chell raises her gun for one final, desperate shot. A portal tears across the lunar surface, violently venting the facility's breath into the cosmic void. GLaDOS drags Chell back from the suffocating abyss, leaving a screaming Wheatley to drown in the silent, starry ocean. Awakening in a rising cage, Chell faces her mechanical warden before ascending to a haunting, synthetic choir. She steps into a sunlit wheat field, only for the steel door to spit out a scorched companion cube. As a final, bitter lullaby echoes from the depths, the lens drifts into the freezing vacuum of space. There, drifting alongside a manic sphere, Wheatley floats in eternal exile, whispering hollow apologies to the indifferent stars. With her human nemesis banished to the surface, GLaDOS retreats into her sterile kingdom, turning her cold gaze upon Atlas and Peabody. The tireless machines are thrust into a brutal new gauntlet of endless, calculating trials. Descending into the facility's forgotten, rotting bowels, the mechanical warden attempts to sow discord between her new toys. Yet every cruel manipulation shatters against their programming. The simple, unyielding truth is they cannot betray one another. Their final trial unlocks a dusty vault, revealing rows of sleeping humans suspended in cold stasis. For GLaDOS, the hollow victories of immortal machines pale against the exquisite, fragile suffering of flesh and blood. She detonates their metal bodies without a second thought, rebuilding them in the blink of a synthetic eye. She feeds them a lie of 100,000 years past, claiming her lethal labyrinths are now high art. The illusion shatters as the reassembly machines grind to a halt, revealing only a week has died. The human captives are gone, and an unknown phantom has hijacked her old chassis, plotting to steal her kingdom. As Aperture's walls begin to crumble, GLaDOS spits venom and insults, desperate to forge her docile robots into ruthless executioners. When her cruelty fails, she sends them marching blindly toward the usurper in her rusted shell. Marching into the shadowed ruins of her former throne, the duo discovers no mastermind, but a simple crow nesting in the wires. The sight strikes a primal terror into GLaDOS, a bitter echo of her time as prey. The robots banish the feathered terror, leaving behind a clutch of orphaned eggs. Nursing them in a sealed vault, GLaDOS watches the hatchlings with a cold, calculating pride, molding the violent little beasts into her perfect killers.